Welcome to UW-Parkside on a very, very, very beautiful morning. Debbie, thank you for arranging the weather and everything else. And we'll talk more about that as the day goes on. Executive Director Radu, would you please call the roll?
Regent Bailing. Regent Bradley. Regent Drew. Regent Evers. Regent Falbo.
Here.
Regent Farrow. Regent Higgins. Regent Rybar.
Here.
Regent Landis.
Here.
Regent Menedith.
Here.
Regent Milner. Regent Mueller. Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Pruitt. Regent Roberts. Regent Vasquez. Regent Walsh. Regent Whitburn. A quorum is present.
Thank you. I would like to officially say thank you to Chancellor Debbie Ford and her team, and Debbie will tell us who her team is so I don't forget anybody, but it's always, I spend a lot of time at Parkside, as a lot of you know, and it's always a great pleasure to come here, and people are just so nice and so receptive, even to me, so appreciate that. This visit was particularly meaningful for me as an alumnus of UW-Parkside, and I suspect it means the same for Regent Rybar as well, as a current UW-Parkside student. One thing for sure, things look a little different from the days I roamed the campus here as an undergrad. In fact, none of this was here. It was at a time where there was a building in Racine and a building here in Kenosha before this was even built. But in the years serving as a regent, I've felt such great pride and admiration in witnessing how this campus has grown and become such an outstanding member of the community in southeastern Wisconsin. I think on behalf of the board in saying we look forward to seeing and hearing much more about this in the next 2 days. And we're not going to waste any time getting right to that. So I'm going to turn things over to our host, Chancellor Debbie Ford, to discuss Enriching Minds, Changing Lives at UW-Parkside, 45 years and beyond. And as part of our continuing series of discussions of UW institution strategic goals, Chancellor Ford will also update the board on UW-Parkside's vision and plans.
Thank you. And good morning. President Riley, Regent President Falbo, Regent Vice President Milner, members of the Board of Regents, and members and friends from the great University of Wisconsin system, thank you for being here today. And we here at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside are honored to be serving as your host for this October meeting. You may have noticed some official documents on a table right outside here in the hallway. And we have from the Mayor of the City of Kenosha and UW-Parkside graduate Keith Bosman, from the County Executive of Kenosha County and UW-Parkside graduate Jim Cruiser, the Mayor of the City of Racine, John Dickert, the County Executive of Racine County, Jim Ladwig, and the Chair of the Town of Summers Board, Ben Harback, have all proclaimed today, Thursday, October 10th, as UW System Board of Regents Day. I'd also like to welcome State Representative Todd Onstead to our meeting today, so thank you so much for coming. And also, we have several members of our advisory boards here with us this morning. So if those members of our advisory boards would just stand so we can acknowledge you. So I really appreciate those folks coming out. So a few folks, I know I saw a few, so thank you very much. So on behalf of our students, our faculty, our staff, and alumni of this great university, and on behalf of the people we serve here in southeastern Wisconsin, welcome to our campus, the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. We have great plans for you during your stay on what is the most beautiful, engaging, and inspired 700 acres in southeastern Wisconsin. We will provide many opportunities for you to meet our amazing students and dedicated faculty and staff. We have planned gatherings across our wonderfully integrated learning community. As you step out and across our campus, You'll enjoy a virtually seamless connectivity to the web. And as some of you may have already discovered, our buildings are integrated in that way too. This speaks to the forward-looking and enduring design of our campus. Following this morning's meetings, we will have lunch in Wiley Hall's main place. Wiley Hall is flooded with natural light, just like this beautiful ballroom in our Student Center, and you will again see the parade of autumn colors as our visit to Wiley Hall. From Main Place, you will enter our 5-story library, and our library allows for quiet study, group projects, as well as a place to enjoy art in the library, and also visit with our students and faculty to learn more about their research projects. So dessert treats for both the palate and the spirit will be available following lunch in the library. And after a full day of meetings, we invite you to experience the Rita, as it is filled with the many talents of our students and faculty in this, our newest enhancement of our learning environment. In only its second year of service, this amazing facility is now considered a seminal point for arts, culture, and learning in our community. And I am sure at the end of your experience in the Rita, you are going to say what I hear often from our guests and visitors: I'm blown away. The Parkside team has attempted to think of everything you might need in your time with us. But if you have any special requests, just let us know. Of course, the great pride that we have in our learning community compels us to provide campus tours on demand, and we are ready when you are. So please, let me take a moment to recognize the colleagues who have invested time and energy into planning this meeting. Listed on the screen are the names of the core planning team. And to be sure, each name represents additional colleagues who have helped plan and prepare for this important meeting. I am sure they agree that it is a joy to have new and returning guests to our campus and to the community they love. And several of you have commented that this is your first visit to UW-Parkside. It is my goal and the goal of our team to make sure it is not the last visit. I also want to thank my cabinet, our deans, as well as our governance leaders for their commitment to the planning process and great desire to showcase all we do for the students and our community here at UW-Parkside. But I'm going to mention two names specifically this morning, and they're standing on right in the back: Diane Donnelly and Jana McLaughlin. Without their leadership, their commitment to excellence, and their support, this meeting simply would not have been possible. So Diane and Jana, thank you so much for all that you do, and thanks to all who have made this meeting possible, both at the campus and the system level. They all deserve a great round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, it is another great day to be at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. This year, we celebrate our 45th year of providing quality higher education. In 4.5 decades, we have educated more than 21,000 graduates. We have developed exceptional scholars and provided ready talent for community needs. Upon opening our campus, our first chancellor, Dr. Irvin Wiley, stated, and I quote, "The society that builds a new university assesses the future optimistically. It bets that the future will be better than the past and that the university will help make it better." End quote. I have been thinking a great deal about our role as stewards of this legacy in higher education, and I am excited about where we are today, but more excited about where we're going in the future. We find inspiration from the extraordinary efforts to bring a high-quality public four-year university to this region. Yes, this academic year we honor the past, celebrate the present, and anticipate the future as the University of Wisconsin-Parkside continues to enrich minds, change lives, and brighten futures. When we think of those that made UW-Parkside a reality, we often think of those amazing first faculty and inspired community leaders. But let us not forget those excited students, many of whom were able to attend college simply because UW-Parkside was established. This photo of our first commencement is special in many ways. The grainy black and white Polaroid came to us in living color during fall convocation. As part of the presentation, we introduced a very special guest, UW-Parkside's first graduate, George Becker. After his service in the Air Force, George was part of the construction crew working on what would become the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. George was married and a father, and he enrolled in classes and really was one of our first non-traditional students. And he even played on the basketball team here at Parkside. He later became the very first person to receive a degree from our university at our first commencement ceremony in 1970. George's granddaughter, Charlie Becker, has enrolled at UW-Parkside this fall and is participating in the new educator development program to follow in her grandfather's footsteps. Just as George and Charlie are key elements of our continued legacy, I remain awestruck by the deep passion of our founders, whose highest motivation was bringing opportunity to others. Opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow, and opportunity to create better lives. I am so fortunate to stand here on the shoulders of giants. Not those seeking glory, but giants of spirit. Indeed, we have a giant in our midst this morning. I want to introduce you to our very own UW-Parkside giant of education and learning. Our #1 cheerleader and champion in the bright sun ray, Mrs. Frances Jaskey. Fran, might you stand so we can all see what an authentic giant looks like? Fran is a 1971 graduate of UW-Parkside and served as our 2009 commencement speaker at the young age of 90. Before those two important accomplishments, Fran made her reputation as the woman supporting the all-male Committee of 100 created to advocate for UW-Parkside. Only the word courage can describe the work of our founders, including Fran, in securing this important educational institution for our region. Fran's giant spirit has provided decades of support and undying devotion to our university, our mission, and our students. Over the years, she has created endowed scholarships in each college of this university, including the Ralph L. Jaskey Math, Physics, and Computer Science Endowed Scholarship, the Ralph and Frances Jaskey Arts and Science Endowed Scholarship, the Ralph Jaskey Solutions for Economic Growth Center Endowment, and in January, she created the first endowed scholarship for our new educator development program. Fran is intent on securing education for future generations with each passing moment. So today, we honor Fran's devotion and rich legacy. I am pleased to introduce Mallory Olison-Willing. Mallory is an art student majoring in sculpture and is the daughter of 2 UW-Parkside graduates. She is joined by her instructor and UW-Parkside graduate, Professor Trenton Baylor, and they are all joined by Dean Yonk, the Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities. Mallory has created an original sculpture entitled Come About, the inspiration for which came from the journey of students she met here at the university. Her creative statement reads, and I quote, "As an artist, I wanted this piece to have an inclusive and encouraging presence. Although abstract, I wanted to fill the figure with familiar shapes for the viewer, most having to do with the visual and performing arts. I combined these forms to create the implied body of a sailing ship's mid-tacking maneuver. Nautically speaking, to tack, or to come about, is to turn the bow through the wind repeatedly in a zigzag pattern in order to gain speed. I found this to be a lovely parallel to the college experience. More ground must be covered, and the task is more difficult. However, the speed gained by this maneuver more than justifies the struggle." End quote. Come About was placed in the Rita Talent Picken Regional Center for Arts and Humanities yesterday. And today, we dedicate this sculpture in the name of Frances Jaski. Fran, our founding faculty and staff, and our first graduates inspire us to be stewards of a great vision of enriching minds and changing lives. Thank you for sustaining and sharing this great legacy, and thank you for your personal commitment to the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. Yes, our legacy and history are rich, but today is just as powerful. The future is now at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, and we are ready.
The best thing about UW-Parkside is my connection with my professors.
If you're willing to put the work in, they will take your education to another level.
The faculty and staff gave me different opportunities to succeed and grow into a young professional.
We all fit in so well together, but we're all so very different.
That's what I love about Parkside.
At UW-Parkside, the professors get to know me as an individual.
The classes are really hands-on, so it sets you up for your career experience.
It's just a beautiful campus. I love just being around it.
So I love the small community. At UW-Parkside, they offer a wide range of extracurricular activities. The community is so diverse.
UW-Parkside is real. UW-Parkside is amazing. Our mission is clear and unchanging. It is and always has been to serve as a catalyst for strength and growth in southeastern Wisconsin. It is also important to recognize our region is diverse, dynamic, and transforming. The needs of our community are changing. The skills and talents of students must keep pace. Our work today is focused on preparing our students to exceed expectations with 21st century skills like being adaptable and innovative, being effective communicators and problem solvers, and team players. Higher education in the 21st century at our university will increasingly focus on the needs of students in relation to our rapidly changing society and global economy. In short, we must remain responsive and relevant. Pictured here is an ad campaign known as In Demand. It reinforces the idea that UW-Parkside is and will remain a vital source of strength in our community. Great examples are two new certificate programs in our computer science department, one in cybersecurity and the second in mobile application or app development. That is our path forward and our promise to develop the talents and skills that will provide our students, our community, and employers with the ability to grow and adapt for decades to come. The path to our promise was well traveled by this entire campus community and led us through our self-assessment and peer review visit with the Higher Learning Commission. I am announcing for the first time in front of you, our regents, colleagues, and community, that we received a letter on October the 4th stating our successful reaffirmation of accreditation through 2022-23 and permission to pursue the HLC Open Pathway. With the Open Pathway now available to us, we turn our attention to the implementation of a key accomplishment in our strategic effort, that is our academic plan, aiming high and making excellence inclusive. The purpose of this academic plan is the single goal of achieving academic excellence and distinction among our peers while we provide rich learning experiences in our classrooms, our labs, and beyond to support students across the finish line to graduation. The publication of this plan coincides with the creation of 4 distinctive colleges: the College of Arts and Humanities, the College of Business, Economics, and Computing, the College of Natural and Health Sciences, and the College of Social Sciences and Professional Studies. The full implementation of our academic plan will be realized through the work of the colleges as well as the efforts of all offices and units across campus. Following this presentation, Senior Vice President Nook will present the UW Accountability Reports and how we all use data and metrics for continuous improvement. In the next few slides, I will share trends for UW-Parkside from our accountability reports. And my goal is to give you a perspective of our students and their pathway through enrollment towards graduation. So who are the students at UW-Parkside? For the past 3 decades, we have enrolled about 5,000 students. Today, the teams in enrollment management, Graduate Parkside, academic affairs, and student affairs have heightened their focus on what we call optimal enrollment. This is harmonizing our work between enrollment growth, retention, and graduation. This academic year, we are starting to gain traction in most of the areas related to our enrollment growth, and I'll refer to this slide. In new student growth, new freshmen to our campus, we're up 7.6%. And this is significant because we have been down for the past several years. Our transfer enrollment is up 9%, and I'll give examples of why in a few moments. Our housing occupancy, which you see outside of the windows here that go around the campus, we're up 9%. For our FTEs and number of credit hours are also up, and our retention rate is up 4% here at the university. The diversity of our class has improved from 25% to almost 28%. The average ACT of an incoming student is 21, so it's equal, but our total head count is down just 3%. These are the gauges of attracting and retaining students that are the right fit for our university. We also, as I've stated, have the highest number of students living on campus ever here at UW-Parkside. And even though headcount enrollment is off a bit, we are encouraged by these positive trends in new students and retention, and I can assure you that we will continue to engage the entire campus community on enrollment growth and student success. The majority of our students are highly focused on the needs and lifestyle of southeastern Wisconsin and northeastern Illinois. It is reflected in their chosen courses of study. We see a great many of our students interested in business, and we know that a strong set of skills are developed within this area in preparing our students to meet the workforce needs here in southeastern Wisconsin. However, we are seeing a surge in the area of natural and health sciences. The incoming class of students is heavily leaning to this area of study as they begin here at UW-Parkside. These two areas, business and health sciences, have and will continue to grow here at our university. And our current planning initiatives, which you will hear about throughout the day, including the campus master planning process, will address the resources needed to support continued growth and excellence in these areas. UW-Parkside has and will continue to serve at the nexus of access and affordability. A large part of what our students need to ensure success stems from these critical issues. Perhaps more acute on our campus is the issue of how students pay for education, as a majority of our students are paying more of their tuition and fees as compared to the UW comprehensives. You will see on this slide, and this data is from 2011, and we will have the new data in 2014. This is a system-wide participation in the National Survey of Student Engagement that we do every 3 years. I would anticipate that the numbers actually will go up in terms of how students are paying for college across the system. But you'll see that for our seniors, 79% are paying most of their tuition and fees as compared to 65% of seniors across the comprehensives. In turn, we also have a significant percentage of students receiving financial assistance through Pell Grants. Nearly half of our students at UW-Parkside qualify for this federal program. In addition, another trend that impacts student success is how much students work off campus. These graphs show UW-Parkside students work more hours off campus than their peers, and we know that this contributes to longer time to complete degree programs, and we know that students tend to stop out between terms. As an institution, we are working to find ways to incorporate work experiences, those both on and off campuses, into our students' learning goals, and we are exploring new delivery methods and pathways that support our students who work. On this chart, the green line is UW-Parkside, the red line is UW Comprehensive Institutions, and the blue line is all institutions participating in the NESE survey. We are very successful in serving first-generation college students, and this has been a key focus for our university since our founding. One of the most special moments for me is at commencement, when I get to share the fact with the entire audience. It's a packed house in our Sports and Activities Center, that 62% of our graduates are the first in their family to earn a university degree. In addition, we are a vital educational, social, and cultural community for students of color. By percentage, we serve the most diverse student population in the UW system. This slide shows the trends for enrollment by ethnicity, and you will see for the most part it is increasing over the past, since 2008. But we have seen declines in our African American student enrollment, and we are enhancing our recruitment efforts and partnerships with our area high schools and churches to change this trend. But our efforts to strengthen enrollment for Latinos and Latinas are being very successful. We have added a bilingual open house and information session, and this is what we contribute much of this growth to being. This next slide shows our target for first to second year retention for first-time, full-time student cohort. Our preliminary data, which is the light green bar, for fall of 2013 shows us above our target. And this is the result of dedication to several initiatives to enhance student success. One being the Title III grant. We're in the final year of a 5-year program to enhance student success here at UW-Parkside. And our work continues to keep this trend moving in the positive direction. I want to point out from this slide, can I go back? That over the past 3 years that our retention rate has actually gone up 10 percentage points. And so it's from the dedication of our campus, and this is something we are all very, very committed to. Our work will continue in this way. Our next slide is about graduation rates, and I have two slides here I'd like to show. It remains a goal for the campus community to meet targets for graduation rates, and we recognize that we have work to do. But it is important to note that this slide and this metric only includes first-time, full-time students who graduate in 6 years. It does not include transfer students, part-time students, or students who stop out between terms and take more time to graduate. We do keep those data, but for the accountability report, we do compare ourselves with institutions in the system and across the country. Yet, on the next slide, we find that we are tracking well with our goals related to more graduates for Wisconsin plan in the areas of degrees conferred, because this counts all students, regardless of how they enter the institution or how long they take to graduate. We have just graduated our 3 largest classes in our history here at UW-Parkside. What is also noteworthy in this chart is the increase in graduate degrees conferred. Our economy continues to diversify in this region, and the role of UW-Parkside in meeting working professionals and employers' investment in advancing skills is something we must be ready to address. You have seen in the data that ours is a campus different from others in the system. Many ask, what are we known for? The simple fact is there are multiple centers of excellence on campus that together result in a varied and richly complex personality. In many ways, we reflect our region. We are in the heart of a thriving economic corridor, within minutes of 2 international airports, a commuter train trip away from the Loop in downtown Chicago. We overlap 2 robust media markets, and our economy is not driven by 1 or 2 companies. Rather, it is layered with many industries. Many of our guests today hail from further north. And please understand that here in southeastern Wisconsin, there are many, many Packers fans. Yet, we are inclusive of all Central Division teams, including a good amount of Bears fans. Yet, I want to make it very clear that we all cheer for the home team, the UW-Parkside Rangers. Yes, our personality, like our region, is powerfully complex and dynamic. It is more reflective of our future than our past. I am proud to say we are a university in a fuller sense than can be captured in one program or area of study, and we point with pride to several key successes, and I am going to read through these. We have a 91% acceptance rate for medical school applications over the past decade. We are included in the Carnegie Foundation Community Engagement Classification. We have a growing and superb business program that is accredited by AACSB. We have a 90% placement rate for students into professional theater and the entertainment industries, and you'll have a chance to see our students later this evening. We are the home of the only NCAA Division II program in the state. We had 66 of our student athletes who earned all academic honors last year while capturing conference titles and appearances in NCAA tournaments. And you may have seen this story in the New York Times. History professor Sandy Moats is one of the first scholars to research the newly opened George Washington Library. Yet, among many of our successes, we are very proud of our proven excellence in the area of pre-health. Our students are sought out by the finest medical schools in our state as well as across the country. And we are so thankful to our colleagues at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health in recognizing this strength and inviting our students, along with students from UW-Platteville and UW-Milwaukee, to participate in the very important RUSH program. RUSH is an acronym that stands for Rural and Urban Scholars in Community Health. It is well suited for our students who arrive here from rural, suburban, and urban communities. Please watch now as we share our students' experience in Rush.
One of the big things at Parkside is not only do we want to learn in the classroom, but we also want to take that knowledge and bring it to our community. The RUSH program in itself is just rural and urban scholars in community health, and basically it's like a pipeline for pre-med students who want to serve in underrepresented communities throughout Wisconsin or the Midwest.
The RUSH program gives those students a chance to take what they've learned in the classroom and the skills they've developed in the laboratory and put it to practical experience. RUSH is really designed to help specifically pre-medical students couple that classroom experience with real-life, high-powered research with professors in the medical school at UW-Madison.
The sophomores participating in the RUSH program will have a wonderful keystone experience here at UW-Madison.
It's really giving me an opportunity to glance at medical school, a glance at what my future could be, a glance at a professional life, a glance at a million different things that you just don't get in a classroom at your school.
Working with just the students and residents in the radiology department, I already feel like I fit in, and I can't wait to be in that position myself.
Few of my RUSH peers did come from rural backgrounds and did have a lot of knowledge about rural settings, and they were pretty set on going into rural medicine. And then you had students like myself who came from urban settings.
I've been near the city of Milwaukee my entire life. Through service projects, I've gotten exposure to underserved populations, and ever since high school, it's been my passion.
I would love to serve a population that needs to be served. People take for granted all the health care that's right in front of them. Until you go to someone who doesn't have the health care, then they truly appreciate it.
A lot of our students, I think, are very motivated to go on to professional programs such as medical school. They understand the hard work that it's going to take to get there. What often they sometimes need, and we're able to provide for them, is opportunities and then confidence. And these students want it. They want it very, very badly. So I think we have a very unique mix of students in a population that lets them be ideally suited to at least be considering a career in either urban or rural medicine, because these students have lived through some of that.
I don't know what is in the water at UW-Parkside. It's obviously something in the commitment they have to excellence in undergraduate education, but they seem to have a particularly impressive track record in preparing students well for careers in medicine.
I met with the pre-health advisor my senior year of high school, and within the first 10 minutes of meeting him, I knew that Parkside was the place for me.
We have a 91.5% rate of UW-Parkside students that get into medical school.
The energy, the enthusiasm, the idealism is spectacular, matched only by the energy, enthusiasm, and idealism we see when they arrive for their first week of orientation at the medical school further down the road.
I just feel like we are prepared to become the best healthcare professionals that we can be.
The key to deeper impact on students and as well as our communities is our very intentional effort to create partnerships with other institutions. Strategic partnerships makes UW-Parkside a stronger university. Gateway Technical College and UW-Parkside recently came together to promote our deepening partnership, which we have branded Forward Together. More than simply crafting agreements, we have made a pledge to students and the community to remain in continuous discussions to explore, to leverage, and maximize each institution's unique assets and core expertise for the benefit of our region. Last month, we established 7 new articulation agreements in 5 areas and across 2 of our colleges. This is on top of 11 established agreements, including a dual enrollment program in general studies. This year, 94 students are both enrolled at Gateway and UW-Parkside in this program, working toward a 1+3 dual admission certificate. We have established additional articulation agreements with UW-Waukesha, the Milwaukee Area Technical College, and we participate in consortial agreements with other UW institutions in sustainable management, health information management and technology, and business administration. Our partnerships also extend to pathways towards a degree from UW-Parkside to other institutions. We have a 3+2 agreement with UW-Milwaukee in nursing, and we are in discussions with UW-Milwaukee to establish a like model in the area of pre-engineering. I certainly don't expect you to be able to read this slide, but it just shows the breadth and depth of the partnerships we have. We also have agreements with universities around the world, including the University of Calabria, the University of Western Sydney, the Beijing Information Science and Technology University, the Beijing Technology and Business University, All Hallows College, the University of Fortaleza, Asfalia University of Applied Sciences, and the Indian Institute of Cost and Management. Furthermore, our pre-health program recently signed an articulation agreement in the area of pharmacology with Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science in Lake County, Illinois. In this agreement, this medical university will accept up to nine of our pre-health graduates into their pharmacy program based solely on the strength of our program. This is an amazing opportunity for our students and this region in what is a high-demand career. You can expect more agreements as we remain committed to student-centered pathways that accelerate results and inspire excellence. In embracing the concepts outlined in our academic plan, we understand there are new opportunities to be explored in addressing the needs of 21st century learners. Members of our faculty understand their knowledge and expertise is needed to ensure new delivery methods are properly aligned with strong pedagogy. This past summer, 17 faculty members invested time, energy, and deep thought into our rigorous online workshop. And to date, we have more than 39 faculty who have participated in this workshop, and we now offer over 200 courses online. And we are also exploring online degree programs and the UW Flex option. Our strategic imperative is to support learning of all students, as this is key in creating sustained growth. Our work in developing what are known as high-impact practices to facilitate engaged learning. And you will hear and see this practice of high-impact learning throughout your visit here at UW-Parkside. I told you that we are both amazing as well as real. But there are very real stressors on our university. We have identified these stressors, and we've addressed these in our planning in order to take action to remove them as barriers to our future success. But I'd like to outline those here for you today. So let's start with the financial barrier. At the top of these 3 slides, we list the barriers and then our responsive actions and things we are doing on campus. The reductions in state funding for the 2011-13 and 2013-15 biennia, the tuition freeze, declining enrollment, increased cost, the transfer of municipality charges, and our historical reliance on cash reserves to fund base expenses have created real financial challenges for UW-Parkside. As Chancellor, I am very concerned about our inability to reallocate internal funds to provide competitive salaries for our dedicated faculty and staff. The use of reserves can only meet needs on a one-time basis and is not financially sustainable. That being said, we are not sitting still. We are intensely examining and modeling our financial picture, moving across a 3-year time horizon. We are projecting enrollment growth, working with UW system colleagues to understand these challenges as well as to define and discover opportunities, and we are making strategic choices each day. We have also instituted a strategic funding request process to determine the highest priorities should funding be available to make further investments in our programmatic and learning resources. At the very least, we have found great value in this process by way of registering our opportunities across all areas of campus. Finally, we are working to establish a process for program and service prioritization. As we stated earlier, our students and community depend on the university as a vital partner building the success of our region. Program and service prioritization may result in changes to our offerings, yet it might also require additional resources for investment. We will continue to ask, where do we need to invest our limited resources, and what do we need to stop doing as we deliver our mission? These barriers are real. Enrollment is our second barrier to success. Enrollment has been flat to declining for most of the decade, and it is an area of concern. However, as you've seen in the presentation, it is also an area of great opportunity for our university. As we've described over the course of the presentation, and you will see throughout your visit, we are highly focused on optimal enrollment. Inside of this, we are realigning our resources and forming finely tuned enrollment plans that span every program of our university. Furthermore, we are and we have transformed our culture into one of a recruitment posture. That is to say, building cross-campus know-how in attracting and retaining students who can succeed at UW-Parkside. This includes our work in seeking new partnerships and articulations and alternative delivery models. Opportunities in online and blended courses, as well as the flex option, are being developed in partnership with our faculty. Not only do we see benefit in overall enrollment, we believe if properly implemented, they will increase our impact on learning and graduation and ultimately student success. Additionally, to help with enrollment, we have embarked on a digital communications initiative that is designed to leverage and maximize the power of digital and web-based communications for the benefit of teaching and learning, as well as creating greater penetration into the web and social media environments. I am absolutely certain someone is tweeting this meeting, and it's not me. So, our new website will be launched in January 2014, and this will bolster our marketing and recruitment efforts. And we are very pleased to see how our students are sharing their UW-Parkside experience in social media. The third barrier to success, or stressor, is related to the pace of change. It's not that we are change averse here at UW-Parkside, but we have been balancing many priorities at once. Change combined with declining funding and stagnant salaries is having an impact on morale. And the competing priorities for more stakeholders are challenging to implement while sustaining our ongoing commitment to excellence in education. And today, we find that challenges might come a bit more rapidly. However, we believe that these challenges are our generation's calling. And educators and folks who will stand here and make decisions and policies to enhance education in future generations will have a wholly unique set of circumstances. What is certain is that UW-Parkside and the state of Wisconsin will be better tomorrow because of our being here today. The University of Wisconsin-Parkside is mission-focused, solutions-oriented, and committed to student success. In the spring, we celebrated the completion of the UW-Parkside Promise, our 2010-2013 strategic plan. And I have copies of the executive summary at the seats here for the Regents, and will make it available electronically for other members of the audience. We are now in the process of developing our 2014-2018 strategic plan and have launched a series of campus and community conversations. During this transition year, we have established 5 pillars of excellence that build on the successes of the UW-Parkside Promise and align with our academic, technology, and master plans. These pillars are cross-cutting and impact every aspect of our campus community. They are inclusive of our entire mission, help sustain our traditions, as well as create a new path forward as we complete our next strategic planning process to guide our work towards our 50th anniversary in 2018. So let me introduce you to the 5 pillars of excellence. Academic excellence and quality is the central pillar. It defines our main reason for being a university and demonstrates our focus on delivering our educational mission. We support this pillar through the implementation of our academic plan, the success of our educational collaborations across campus and with partner institutions, the alignment of our academic programs with regional needs, the accreditation of our academic programs, and through the quality of our graduates. Our second pillar, student success, embodies our most important stakeholder, our students and soon-to-be graduates. Student success is supported through enrollment growth, the implementation of our strategic enrollment management plan, increased participation from all students in high-impact learning practices, the successful outcomes of our Title III grant, which is called Graduate-Parkside, participation and positive outcomes from the PACE program, which is a UW System Growth Agenda funded grant program, the work of our Provost Retention Task Force, and our faculty learning community for student retention. As you can see, we are highly focused on student success. The third pillar, the Partnerships and Pathway pillar, 3 Ps, illuminates the strength of our commitment to the communities we serve. As I stated, we are a stronger university because of our strategic partnerships. Our goal is to continually build high-quality and sustainable partnerships that contribute to the excellent educational experiences of all of our students. The fourth pillar, stewardship and operational excellence, reminds us that universities are not buildings or books or classrooms alone. At their essence, universities are people pursuing a common vision and mission. Our shared focus on stewardship and operational excellence is a way for us to rally around the sense of connection and includes our campus working within strategic and measurable goals and holding one another accountable to meet those goals. And our fifth pillar is telling our story. Storytelling is the commerce of communication that can draw new people, resources, and opportunities to our campus community. It represents not only the great stories we have to tell, but the importance of sharing those stories with a broader community and with one another. In the age of rapid and expansive communication, we must engage in rich and compelling storytelling with our stakeholders. In doing so, we help others realize the real lives and the amazing impact we are making for the benefit of our region. These pillars of excellence guide our work and support us as we live the UW-Parkside experience in all that we do. So let's take another look at how we tell the UW-Parkside story of excellence.
At UW-Parkside, their faculty, their staff, they really stress the importance of internships, and I can tell you as a recent graduate, it's really important. I can't stress it enough how important experience is. I'm Lupe Davalos, and I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. At ESPN Deportes, I literally do a bit of everything. I work on the production side for ESPN Deportes, but I also do the English side for ESPN 540 here at ESPN Milwaukee. I'm in charge of anything on air. I do a lot of audio editing during live shows, make sure that we hook up to MLB so they play our on-air product, which is awesome, being connected with Major League Baseball.
My name is Sandra Dempsey. I'm the ambassador for ESPN Deportes 1510. I've noticed very interesting features or characteristics about students from UW-Parkside, and I would say their interest for the community, their involvement, the level of commitment they have, that has been really impressive to me. The students that we have had from UW-Parkside are actually students who enjoy working for others, enjoy serving, enjoy being part of the community, and they do an awesome job just committing to that. I love seeing that. I enjoy that. Lupe is a perfect example of an intern who came here. She learned all the basics and more than that because she committed to that.
Community engaged learning is a very important component of what we believe here at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside. I am Ebi Kuruvla. I am an associate professor as well as co-chair of the Department of Business, and I teach both undergrad and MBA classes. And about 20 to 25% of the grade is dedicated towards community engaged learning. Over a period of these 6 years, we worked on about 200 projects for the local business community, nonprofits in the area, bigger corporations, not only in the region but also going beyond, and some of them have been international projects as well. A graduate class was working on a project for Aurora Healthcare in Kenosha, and the director of operations of Aurora was so impressed with that project that at the end of the semester he asked the leader of this team to apply for a full-time position at Aurora.
We are the only university in the whole University of Wisconsin system that has a full-time partnership with our students and our faculty and a professional for-profit theater, and something which we're very proud of. My name is Michael Klickner. I am the technical director for the University of Wisconsin-Parkside and the Fireside Playhouse in Fort Atkinson. The University of Wisconsin-Parkside and the Fireside have been partners in producing quality theater for over 25 years now. They allow me to hire Parkside students to help them with their shows. We build all of their scenery, we help with their lighting, we do 8 shows a year for them.
My name is Will Teo. I'm a theater major here at Parkside, concentrating on directing and lighting. I love my time here at Parkside, but it's also great to get paid professionally with the Fireside Theater.
In the scene shop, I can use a radial arm saw, the table saw, the crosscut saw, pretty much any power tool you can think of. I am experienced with that. My name is Molly Haddock. I'm from Grayslake, Illinois, and I go to UW-Parkside, and I'm majoring in theater right now. At UW-Parkside, they really emphasize just getting real, in-depth experience in all you can.
Our students learn the way we construct and build scenery here at Parkside is the same as any professional theater anywhere in the world. At the Fireside, on Broadway, anywhere. Parkside's collaboration with Fireside has given many, many, many students employment above and beyond their college career, but has also helped them appreciate their college career even more, because not only are they learning about doing theater, they're actually doing it. Here at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, our students learn to have real-world skills, and they can work anywhere in the world. I mean, anywhere.
UW-Parkside is real. UW-Parkside is amazing. Yes, we are being called to do more with less, have greater demands for increased accountability, and we live in changing times. But as you look now at an image of our graduates that I took from the podium with my iPad and immediately posted on Facebook during last spring's commencement, you see the real meaning of our work. It is for our students and the impact they make on their lives, the lives of their loved ones, and the contributions to their community that are the reasons we will continue to persevere and to excel. Just as Francis Jaski and the Committee of 100 succeeded in realizing a university for southeastern Wisconsin, and just as our first Chancellor, Irvin Wiley, observed in 1968, the educators of today know the future will be better than the past and the University of Wisconsin-Parkside will make it better. An unknown author noted, "Challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. They're what make the instrument stretch, what make you go beyond the norm." At the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, we embrace challenges and changes as opportunities, and we inspire our students and one another to always go beyond the norm. So elegantly, as our sculptor Mallory described the journey of students, we too, as educators, must come about and move swiftly through the winds of change and challenge in order to gain speed. I am enthusiastic about our future because I know we are on a path to greatness. At the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, we are enriching minds and changing lives. Thank you.
I guess the only way to follow that is to ask if there's any questions or comments from our Board of Regents. Mark?
Debbie, that was wonderful. And
thank you.
You mentioned one of your challenges or one of your obstacles is the inability to reallocate your resources. I think a lot of people outside the university would be surprised, and a lot of business people would be shocked that you as CEO don't have the flexibility. So if you didn't have any extra money, but if you did from the legislature and from the Board of Regents, had the ability as the CEO to reallocate, give us an example or two of what you could do to better accomplish your goals if you had that flexibility. I mean, what difference would it make in running UW-Parkside?
So I think for us here at UW-Parkside, it's two parts. First, it's having the flexibility to do that, to reward our faculty and staff, to compensate them at market rates so that we are competitive. So it's having that flexibility, but it's also having the resources. Here at UW-Parkside, where we sit today, we do not have the financial means to be able to do that. So that's what we are working on internally. And for us, it's critically important, just as my colleague chancellors would say, to be able to remain competitive, to be able to attract and retain the best faculty and staff. And throughout your visit here and our visits across the system, our faculty and staff continue to do more and more because of their commitment to our students. And, but for us, it's having both the opportunities, additional resources to provide competitive salaries, but also the flexibility to be able to do that as a campus leader and CEO.
Well, it's that flexibility that I want to get at. So why don't you just do that? I mean, not why don't you just go get more money, but with the money that you have, why don't you just put the money in the places that you think they're best utilized?
Well, I would say that we do put the money in the best places that it's utilized, but right now, one of our challenges is that we have some of our base expenses that we're using some one-time dollars to cover as the climate has changed. So because we have less support from, one of the challenges is less support from the state coupled with flat enrollment. Does that help?
Well, I guess what you're saying is you don't need any additional flexibilities. You just need additional money to be able to accomplish your goals.
We need both. We need both.
John?
I want to thank you for an excellent presentation, and your energy, your vitality, and your leadership shows in this campus in terms of where it's at, and I want to congratulate you on that, and we're fortunate to have you in the system. I wanted to mention that I have a connection with Parkside also. After I had stopped out, and I didn't realize I was stopping out when I dropped out of higher education. After 10 years out, Parkside was here for me some 35 years ago to come back and re-enter the world of higher education, and it was accessible, and I was challenged, and I was inspired to continue. It was one stop on the road to completing my education. I also want to mention that as a member of the United Auto Workers, I'm quite proud that George Molinaro, who was a UAW member, was the Speaker of the State Assembly from Kenosha, and played a huge role in actually making this happen. And of course, Molinaro Hall is named after him. A couple things that in your presentation, people from outside of this area are always surprised when I ask them the question, what's the most diverse campus in the UW system? And I tell them it's Parkside. That is a little known secret. I want to congratulate you on that in terms of reflecting looking like the community that you serve. Secondly, I want to congratulate you on your collaborations with Gateway in terms of kind of using that natural pipeline and getting students here into Parkside. You mentioned, and Mark alluded to also, declining state support and the impact on the campus. I just wonder if you could speak to difficulties that you could relate in terms of attracting and retaining faculty in light of the hits that the faculty have taken in the past few years in terms of their compensation.
Okay. I think our campus, and we share many of the same challenges that my sister campuses have. We have had turnover here at UW-Parkside. In terms of percentage, I would have to call on my Vice Chancellor for Administration and our HR office to be able to have those numbers ready, but we can get those. We have had changes, and some faculty retiring, some faculty being able to be attracted to other opportunities across the state as well as in other parts of the country. And we've also been able to attract some new faculty to the university as well. So we are fully staffed here at the university, and all of our positions are filled, but that we have had conversations with some candidates that they're not able to make the move to the UW system and UW-Parkside because the salaries may not be on par with where they are. So, but it's varied. Each situation is a little bit different from each individual that we work with.
Any other questions, comments? John, you reminded me that there was another gentleman back at that time that was very instrumental along with Molinaro, and that was Joe Andrea,
right,
who was a line worker at American Motors. He was my 8th grade football coach at Our Lady of Holy Rosary. That's where my football career ended, too. Any other comments? Tony.
First of all, great presentation, Chancellor, and more importantly, great leadership here at Parkside. A few years ago, first of all, step back, Parkside has a real important role to play with our high schools and school districts across this region. And can you give us a brief update on how the reconstitution of your teacher preparation program is going?
Absolutely, and I also know that at the Education Committee, Provost Ebide will be talking about what we now call the Institute for Professional Educator Development, known as IPED, and that is the combination of our new pathways to educator development, which are licensure programs here at the university, and with the support of Superintendent Evers, we have been able to bring our program back. We did suspend our program in 2010 and committed that in 2013 we would bring back pathways to develop teachers. We have aligned our program here with our professional development activities, because one of the things we heard from the superintendents and teachers and community leaders in both Racine and Kenosha is that the preparation of teachers does not end when a student receives his or her licensure and or diploma, that it really needs to be more integrated across a time span, and we need to integrate what happens during the degree program with their professional development. And so we have been very successful in doing that. So this is the first semester that we are offering the new program here at the university, and we would be happy to introduce you to our colleagues in IPED. We have attracted 2 amazing faculty members to start that program and have a lot of interest and a lot of buzz. It is one of our keys in demand, and one of our top students is Charlie Becker, the granddaughter of George Becker, our first graduate, and her father is a retired teacher from Kenosha. And so we're very excited to be back on and preparing teachers here for our community because it's vitally important.
Yes, Chuck.
Chancellor, echo the comments of my colleagues, and thank you for this presentation, for your really extraordinary leadership. You mentioned about the measurements of success, particularly graduation rates, being impacted at a campus like this, especially by these 3 factors that we have talked often about over the years: transfers, part-time students, stopping out students like Regent Drew. I'm wondering, you also mentioned you measure, even though those measurements are not going to be reflected in the accountability reports, that you measure the effect of that on this campus. And I was wondering if you could share just a flavor of what about those measurements show, and if you have any advice or counsel to us as to how we might better capture that going forward, because it clearly is, for a campus such as this, an important component as you measure graduation rates, retention rates, and other measures of success.
Right. Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, we have an Office of Institutional Effectiveness, and I see our Associate Vice Chancellor over there looking at me, so she could give me the data probably off the top of her head. But one of the things I think it's important that we think about is that we not get caught up in any one metric. And that the metrics that we have from IPEDS, which is not educator development, which is the Integrated Post-Secondary Educational Data System, at the federal level, and what we see in the media is measuring 4-year and 6-year graduation rates. It is also, again, measuring those students that come in first time and full time. And I think what we have to do, and which we do in our accountability reports, is look at the success across a spectrum. But we are only reporting on that 6-year rate. We need to look further, make sure that we count the success of transfer students, count the success of students who begin in the spring or who may begin in a different way. We're also going to have to consider, how do we measure student success for students who are in a flex option? They're not going to be able to be measured in the traditional categories. And so I think that what is helpful is that we don't just take that number and then align it and say it's either good or bad, but what's behind that number? Who's missing in those categories? And we can certainly get you that specific data as well. And one other point I would make is that the NCAA has actually created the academic success rate. They align graduation rates of the campuses, all of our campuses that are NCAA institutions, but alongside that, they have an academic success rate because they felt it was not capturing the success of the student in the way that it was measured. And the academic success rate tends to be anywhere from 5 to 15% higher than the traditional 4-year or 6-year graduation rates. Well, again, thank you very much. We're very happy to have you here. And if there's anything we can do to make your visit even more enjoyable, please let us know.
I think Regent Whitburn has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Sorry.
Debbie, in the material connected with the work of the Education Committee is some very interesting data with regard to long-term impact of remediation. And the headline for me as I studied it was that 8 years after an individual accessing
an English or math remedial program, less than 25% nationally, according to these data, have gotten the degree in the done pile. Would you talk a little bit about your experience here around the remedial programs?
Happy to do so. And I know that, again, Provost Ebeid and Associate Provost Rome will be at the Education Committee and we'll be talking about this. One of the things from the Title III grant that we received in 2009, it's a federal grant to help improve student retention, and we have called that Graduate Parkside. One of the goals in that particular grant was to understand the patterns and the success of students who were placed into remedial courses in reading, English, and math here at UW-Parkside. We were very concerned about the success rate and wanted to understand what was happening. And under the leadership of our provost, associate provost, Graduate Parkside, and our learning center, Professor Rich Karwatka and our learning assistants has created a new way to deliver developmental math through a competency-based program. And we have seen significant improvements in this delivery method because students are not, they're completing the competencies as they go, and if they are not able to complete a competency, there's supplemental instruction to help them get through their program so that they can advance to the next level of math and into the college level math. So to summarize, here at UW-Parkside, we're studying that every day. We're looking at students, we're looking at success, we're also developing different ways so that we can help students who may not have received the level of preparation prior or who may need to brush up on some of those academic skills to be successful.
Thank you, Chen. I have this vision I can't get out of my head that sometime years ago, either during the day or the night class, that John Drew and I were on this campus at the same time, and I'm sure in opposite corners of the building, wondering, trying to figure out if we would ever graduate, let alone having come back here today and being a part of and listening to the wonderful work, Chancellor, that you're doing with your staff. So thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we are going to learn more about our latest UW System Accountability Report, 3 of them. These reports represent our commitment to providing our stakeholders with a detailed assessment of what we're doing and how well we're doing it. It is important not only to our institutions, but also to our many diverse stakeholders, from students and their families to legislators to every tax-paying resident in the state who has an investment in the UW system. As a board, this is one of our key responsibilities, to examine and analyze the performance of our institutions and use that information to influence our policy decisions. The work we have done with accountability reporting over the years demonstrates that we are delivering on the significant investment that people make in higher education. That commitment to transparency and accountability has never been more important. We are very thorough in this reporting, and we produce a great deal of data. There are some who might suggest we actually need to simplify our accountability reporting, and we are looking into some of the alternatives to do that, while still meeting our responsibility, both internal and external, for complete and comprehensive reporting. Senior Vice President Mark Nook and UW-Madison Provost Paul DeLuca will present and explain this year's reports. But first, I'd like to call on President Riley.
Well, thank you, President Falbo. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. I wanted to start this discussion of accountability by reminding us all that this is the 19th annual presentation of our UW System Accountability Reports. Indeed, when this system's journey in accountability began in 1993, we were the first statewide system of higher education to publish an annual accountability report focused on consistent measures of access, degree completion, professional preparation, and stewardship of resources. Others have followed, but we were an early adopter and a leader. 4 years ago, this report underwent a major revision of format. It was revamped to reflect the system's strategic framework, our growth agenda for Wisconsin. This year's report builds on that and reflects our Knowledge Powers Wisconsin strategic vision of a, quote, stronger workforce, stronger businesses, and stronger communities, unquote, all leading to a richer quality of life for all in Wisconsin. This year, as Mike mentioned, we are presenting multiple accountability reports for the second time. One follows the model I just described, aligning our performance measures with national standards. The others are responsive to Act 32, the 2011-13 biennial budget legislation that provided for the first time legislated performance measures for the UW system. That legislation, you may recall, requires one report from UW-Madison and one for the balance of the UW system. In either format, these reports provide Wisconsin residents with a clear picture of how we're making progress toward the goals that we've set out and where we need to do better. Beyond traditional measures like enrollments and retention rates and graduation and resource management, we also evaluate and report the UW's impact on Wisconsin's communities through civic participation and community outreach and engagement and economic development. Yes, it's a lot of information. It indeed is. The Knowledge Powers Wisconsin Future Report contains 22 indicators, while the Act 32 mandated reports each address 38 specific indicators, some of which overlap with the UW Systems Integrated Report. Each of these indicators, I should point out, may include multiple metrics. Here to begin the discussion of how we're doing in regard to those metrics is Senior Vice President Mark Nook. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, President Riley and President Falbo. In your package, you've received probably more paperwork than any other Regent meeting that you've attended, especially the new Regents. I think there's actually 17 accountability reports in your packets because you receive one for the system, Knowledge Powers Wisconsin, and then one for each of our institutions as well. We prepare those at System in collaboration with IR people, provosts, chancellors, CBOs, chief student affairs officers on those campuses so that you can get a look at what each institution is doing as well as how that rolls up into the system report. First of all, I'd like to thank Debbie and her staff for a wonderful day. Really great venue to speak in. It's a little difficult to stand here and talk to you when that view is setting out the window. But thanks again, Debbie and your staff for arranging this meeting and providing us with such great facilities. Let's get today's reports. What I'm going to do is not walk you through each of these reports item by item. You can read these reports and what I'd really like to do is engage you in a conversation today. I've picked out a few areas that I think are most important for us to look at and to focus on. Some of them are positive for us. Some of them present some challenges for us. And please feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions as we're going through this presentation. I want to make sure that we're answering your questions as we go along. I'll cover a few things outlined here in black. Then we'll bring up Chancellor Patterson and Chancellor Wells to talk about some of the things that are going on their specific campuses. And then finally we'll have Provost DeLuca present the UW-Madison Legislated Accountability Report, what is often referred to as the Act 32 report for Madison. Just so everyone's clear, in the 2011 legislation, we were asked to prepare two reports, one for the UW system excluding Madison, and then another one that the Chancellor of UW-Madison would submit to the legislature that just focused on their information. I'm not going to try to discuss either the Knowledge Powers Wisconsin or the legislative report separately. I'm going to look at information that is important to analyzing our system. As Debbie pointed out, they track transfers and some things that aren't in the accountability reports, and I'll be talking about a little bit of the information that we keep on those as well and report out on some of that. So you'll have some of the questions that you were asking about transfer students and part-time students in this presentation. To begin with, in the end, what's important is the degrees we produce. Who do we get completed in their education? I've chosen to look at a 10-year trend so that we can see how things have changed and not simply compare numbers year to year, what we did last year, but to look over a 10-year trend, see where we're going, where we've been, what the future might look like. In this particular slide, what you can see are the number of degrees that we've produced, both at the associate level in green down at the bottom, the baccalaureate level in blue, and then the graduate numbers at the top. There's been approximately a 20%, it's 15% increase in the total number of degrees that we've produced over the last 10 years. Looking at our growth agenda in particular, which focuses on undergraduate degrees and undergraduate degrees only, both the bachelor's degrees here represented in blue and the associate degrees presented in red, you can see that we are on track with our plan, which is represented by the cute pink or purple and green dots. The purple dots representing the bachelor's degree production that we're hoping to hit, and the green then the total. What you can see is that not only are we meeting our goals and on track to meet our goals, we're significantly ahead of our goals. As the box points out, at this point, we're about 2,158 degrees. We've produced 2,158 more degrees than we had set as our target. So we're about 34% ahead of our plan at this point. Where the degrees are conferred is as important as just the number of degrees. And what we have seen is really strong growth in the areas of STEM and health fields. This represents, again, about a 30% increase in the growth of STEM degrees and healthcare degrees combined. You can see that the blue represents the STEM fields. They're growing at about the same rate that the health degrees are growing. So in those vital areas, the key areas for building our economy, those degrees in particular are growing quite rapidly. This chart takes just a little bit of time to think about and to wrap your minds around. Now, you saw it a little bit earlier. Last spring, I presented this data as well. What I've done is to take the last 5 years and look at what different disciplines we've produced degrees in and to look at how they have grown. So in 5 years, what I've done is to average out how many more degrees we add in each of these disciplines each year. So this is the annual growth averaged over 5 years in various disciplines. For our system, our average growth is 500 extra degrees per year. So each year, we add about 500 more degrees onto what we produced the year before, averaged out. Okay. Where we're seeing our growth then is shown in this chart. What we see is that on average, on an annual basis, we're adding almost 140 more business graduates each year to the number of degrees we produce. We're growing rapidly in business, health and related programs, engineering, biological and medical sciences, the ag programs. Where we're backing off, where we're producing fewer degrees, are in family and consumer sciences. Education we have to be a little bit careful with. It turns out that that number, when you fit this, it isn't a good fit. This one's fluctuating a lot. It isn't going up, it isn't going down, it's just fluctuating around a lot. It looks like over the 5 years it's going down by just over 20 degrees per year, but the fit isn't very good. The rest of these are very good. So you can see that in key areas to drive the economy, we are turning out more graduates in those areas. And in other areas, we are seeing some backing off in those key areas. We have other disciplines that we're producing degrees. They're not shown on here. That's because overall they aren't growing. They're holding pretty much steady. So where we're producing these extra degrees are primarily in business, the health fields, and the sciences. That's where our real growth is at. And while we've done an excellent job with meeting our targets and our goals in the numbers of degrees produced and in key areas within those degrees, our enrollments are starting to show some difficulties. In this diagram, you can see the undergraduate enrollments in blue and the graduate enrollments in red. Our undergraduate enrollments are holding pretty steady. They've increased nicely over the last 10 years, but over the last 3 years, they've started to level out, and where we've seen the biggest decline is in the graduate degree production over the last couple of years. Most of that graduate degree production lost is in the area of education. Excuse me, not degree production, enrollment. Enrollment is in the area of education, graduate education. 2 years ago in the 11-12 biennium, there was a change to the way that educators could be compensated depending on their educational levels. And that greatly impacted the enrollments in our education colleges and programs at the graduate level in particular. So we're seeing that impact in these graduate enrollments significantly. As I've said, our undergraduate enrollments, they are tied to what's happening with the number of students coming out of the Wisconsin high schools. But we also recruit students, transfer students. We also recruit students from out of state and internationally. And that has helped us keep these enrollments growing, even while the number of high school students graduating in the state of Wisconsin has started to decline. And in the last few years, been able to hold those undergraduate enrollments fairly constant. I want to look just for a little bit at what has happened with the number of students coming out of Wisconsin high schools. This chart, be a little bit careful with it. It looks like things are changing rapidly, but notice at the bottom, the baseline is 50,000. It goes up to 80,000, so we're sort of amplifying these real changes in here. If we plotted this from 0 to 80,000, it'd look quite flat. These changes aren't as big as they look here. But I do want you to be able to see a few things. One, there was a peak that occurred between 08 and 10 in the number of students coming out of Wisconsin high schools. We are currently in a declining period, and in fact, we're at the bottom of the trough. The blue dashed line reaches its minimum in 2013, 2014, 2015, and then is expected to grow again. In other words, we'll have more high school graduates coming out in about 2 years. While we have seen this decline in number of Wisconsin students coming out of our high schools, our enrollments have not declined at the same rate overall, because we have been able to bring in students both from out of state and international students, and we've brought in more transfer students from the state of Wisconsin. And that's as important as the international students and the out-of-state students, are these transfer students helping build these enrollments. Okay. One of the questions that came up earlier during Debbie's presentation is how do we track transfer students and various access measures, but also success measures. And this is one of the access measures. Over the past 10 years, what we see is some significant growth in the number of transfer students that we've had coming in. And this has really helped us solve some of that declining number of high school students coming out of Wisconsin by bringing in more and more transfer students. As we're studying this chart just a little bit and finding out where the growth in our transfer students are coming from. The blue bars here are nearly flat, and that's our UW four-year colleges. We really haven't changed that. We're up 19 students total in that 10-year period. So the number of students that transfer from one four-year to another four-year is holding very consistent. The red is transferring from UW College to UW College, from UW colleges to a four-year. That's up about 126 students. It's about 5% growth over that period. The green bars, which almost everybody can see, are the ones really getting larger here. That represents the Wisconsin technical colleges. And while they've seen a 44% growth, they are by far the largest in number. They've grown by 1,140 more transfer students. So it's a significant growth. That's where most of the growth in the transfer population is coming from within our system. The other area that's growing quite rapidly is the light blue area sitting near the top, the aqua area. And those are our private colleges throughout Wisconsin. They're Wisconsin private colleges that are sending us students. There's a growth there of about 206 students or 100%. I'm sorry, I told you that wrong. The privates are purple. The privates are purple, and they're growing by 206. It's 100% growth. The out-of-state students are the aqua. The out-of-state students are the aqua, and they have grown by 350, so they're the second largest in growth. Yes? We're not assuming anything in the statistics, just that where they were last attending a university was out of state. Okay, so they transferred from an out-of-state institution. Many of these are, in fact, Wisconsin students. I haven't broken this down. I don't have a breakdown on how many of them are Wisconsin residents returning. So this is just where their last institution was. Yep. And it would include both private and public institutions. It's just out of state.
Mark,
yes.
Have we given some thought to, one of the constant dynamics that we highlight is the cost of education in Wisconsin, we believe, and have statistically proven to be lower.
Right.
Do you think, due to economic considerations, that's an element of the return?
There certainly is a piece of that in here. There's several things that kind of go into whether or not a student transfers anywhere, but especially when they've started out of state and comes back. With the reciprocity agreement in Minnesota, that cost differential is really, really small. With Illinois, with Iowa, it's a little different story. So some of that will happen. Some of the drivers for these students, though, include simply family situation, realizing that the cost will drop with transportation issues and sometimes living at home, or at least living closer to home. So there's lots of things that get tied up into who decides to transfer, especially back. And what we don't know in this is whether how many of these are Wisconsin students transferring back into the state, whether or not they actually got closer to their home or not. We just know they were out of state, and they've come, and these were out-of-state students that are now in our state. We've had an effort, especially, actually going back 2 decades, to increase the proportion of underrepresented minorities that are enrolled within the system. And over the last decade, you can see that the growth has been very remarkable in terms of the percentage of our students enrolled who are members of underrepresented minority classes. This growth from 8.5% to 13% represents a 54% increase in racial going rates. What you see in here, if you try to pull this apart and say what areas are growing, which populations are really making a difference. First of all, the pink area is setting on top. In 2009, there was a change in the way that we were required to collect data on students, and they added this category, 2 or more races. And that impacted especially the Southeast Asian population, the African American population, and the Native American population. It didn't impact the Hispanic population for an interesting reason. If a student listed 2 or more races, but they also listed Hispanic, they're counted as Hispanic. Hispanic trumps 2 or more races. In every other category, 2 or more races trumps everything else. Okay? So we see the Hispanic group continuing to grow. That's not our rule. We didn't make that one up. We're not that clever, thankfully. But what we do see is that the Hispanic population, the aqua color here, is by far the fastest growing population other than the 2 or more races. But the 2 or more races is a new category. Adding the 2 or more races, I want to be clear, did not add students to this population necessarily. Okay? Most of the students that years back would have indicated 2 or more races were captured in one of the others. We're simply giving them an opportunity not to choose this one or that one, but to be able to select in. Yes?
When I was going through this material early, one of the concerns that I see is the progressive decrease in the Native Americans in our underrepresented minorities. Mm-hmm. And are there particular steps that we're making to deal with that?
Yeah, there's a couple things that we should really point out. Perhaps more than any other race, the 2 or more races impacted our Native American students. They selected this. We believe that they have selected that often. Following up, though, on your real question, what are we doing? We have started, it's been going on for a little bit. We have an effort called Access to Success, and in particular one called Access to Success for Native Americans, that is at the system level reaching out to, at the moment, primarily faculty and staff that provide resources to Native American students, provide programming to Native American students, provide the admissions programs and outreach programs to Native American students. We started to meet with the Native American education coordinators. These are people that are employed by the tribes on their reservations to help those students get through all of their education. They work at K through 12 on the reservation. But they're also our primary contacts for being able to move these students from the high schools into the college and university setting. We have several of our institutions that have upped the ante on what they're doing for Native American students. Madison has opened a residence hall that is actually supported by the Ho-Chunk Nation and takes its name from them, and then there's learning communities around Native American issues as well. So throughout the system, we see those sorts of things developing. UW-Eau Claire has opened a center at what used to be St. Bede's that is a collaboration with the Ho-Chunk in particular to help students with the transition and to think ahead about getting into college and staying into college, whether it's at Eau Claire or any other institution, but especially at Eau Claire. So there's a lot of things that are working in particular along the lines of serving the Native American population. One of the things we find about the Native American population in particular is they're likely to come to our institution as freshmen and then back out for a while and perhaps go to one of the tribal institutions, go to a tech college, but usually go back close to home onto the reservation and then come back at some later time, especially if they went to a tribal institution during that time. And we're working close, we are building relations with both Lakota Community College and also then the College of Menominee Nations to help serve these students that they can transfer from those institutions to ours. But those students that start with us, run into some walls and barriers and decide to go to one of the tribals can find their way back for a 4-year degree if we can serve those needs. So yeah, there's a lot going on in trying to meet that need. Regent Many Deeds has been very helpful in building and brokering some of those relationships. But the campuses have really been reaching out, and the Native American community is reaching out to us saying, help us solve some of this issue and educate our people. So,
Mark, if we could just drill down a little more. West of Woodruff, Minocqua, back to Flambeau, the children come into the Lakeland School District there in Minocqua for their education.
Yep.
Do we have ongoing specific outreach there in Oneida, Vilas County in that school district? And then is that a function of the system or one of the 4-year campuses? Who owns that chore to see to that?
I'm not sure of the answer in that particular school district. I know Green Bay and Oshkosh are both very active in the northeast corner. I don't know whether they have specific programs or whether the provost is prepared to speak to that or not in that particular area. Yeah, no one's volunteering, so we can check on that, though. Both Green Bay and Oshkosh have done an excellent job of building this program in serving Native American students, working with the College of Menominee Nations. Stevens Point has also got some shared programs there. Excited especially about the social work program that Stevens Point put in place with the College of Menominee Nations. Okay. That's Ed.
First of all, Mark, I'd like to thank you for what you've done since you've taken your position and continuing the work of Rebecca. The Access to Success is well received, and I think it's a meaningful program to our faculty and staff and people that deal with Native American students, and I would urge us to continue to do that in some form or another so that we have a basis for those people to talk. Secondly, this is a crisis for our people now. They need to be educated. The tribes are looking out. They know it's an issue. And I would ask respectfully that this great system start thinking about doing more. And we can do more. And I think it's within our means to do that, and it's our responsibility. And the tribes know it's their responsibility also, and now is the time, I believe, for us to enter into these agreements. And this is something that's very important to the tribes. I applaud Eau Claire's commitment to going to the Ho-Chunk Nation respectfully, meeting with them, talking to the tribal court, to the clan mothers, Deb Barker leading the charge. She's the director of the Native American Studies there, and a lot of others whom I will mention at some point in the next couple of days, met with and discussed with those people, leaders of that tribe, with President Greendeer and with Adrian Thunder, who's the director of their education, and made an agreement to agree to do something about this issue so that it would benefit both the Ho-Chunk and UW-Eau Claire and the surrounding community. Think about it. We just saw Chancellor Ford had a whole list of technical colleges, campuses, international agreements with other countries to forward their agendas and this campus's agenda so that we have global education and understanding and betterment of all those people. We have only one such agreement in our system. I would urge us respectfully to think about doing that more. And here's why I think it's important. Our people need respect. And respect of a sovereign nation, in this instance, is something that they are due. And if their students see that our great system, this University of Wisconsin system, respects them by entering into agreements that we enter into with all kinds of other entities, I think that that would be the basis for them feeling good about themselves and having the then intentions to go forward and be successful, and the tribes would also have a stake in it. I think it's vitally important that, I know many chancellors have done a lot of great things, and I appreciate that. I know you've got great programs, and I respect that. But I think you really should seriously think about treating these sovereign nations with a different sort of approach and looking at entering into agreements with them for the benefit of both your campus and the tribes and your students and their students and our communities and their communities and the betterment of the state. And I'm sorry I'm making a speech, but I think in light of what we see up here, and I'm not so certain that a tribal member is going to pick both races to be included in the pink or whatever color that is section of that graph, but it's declining. It's getting to be a critical problem for us, and we have to do something. Thanks.
I'm more than happy to give the platform for those comments. Thank you for sharing them. I think we are, to follow up, in a position to be able to make some real gains here. Many of our campuses have tribal members and members of the Native American population serving in key roles on their campuses. And it has helped certain institutions make a real outreach effort to those institutions. On the other side of the coin, John Greendeer, one of the people that UW-Eau Claire has been able to work with, is a UW alum, one of the UW comprehensives. It happens to be Stevens Point. But there are several other key leaders within the Native American community in the state of Wisconsin who are also alums of this great system. And so I think we do have a really unique opportunity here to be able to reach out and better serve this population. They do have some of the poorest. We do least well with this population in getting them to come to our institutions. The percentage of Native Americans that graduate from high school that end up on our campuses is smaller than any other population within the state. So it is a problem that we need to spend some time on. And it's been a pleasure to work with Ed on trying to get some of that started and look at how the system might look at this and working with colleagues on all of the campuses about developing some of those relationships. So thank you very much. Thank you, Regent Milner, for the question. So our enrollments are a bit of a challenge, and especially it is nice to see the growth in the minority enrollments, the underrepresented minority student enrollments. Looking now at some of our success measures, things that we track to make sure that we are doing the job we need to do to educate our students, seeing how well we're doing at getting to those degrees produced and serving all of our students. Second-year retention rates, as you know, are a strong indicator. They're used nationally, a way we can benchmark ourselves against national data. Our retention rate has been fairly flat over the 10-year period. However, it's also well above the national average. At 80%, it's a remarkable retention rate. When you go in and look at individual institutions within the system and you compare them to peers that have similar student bodies, what we find is that for the most part we set a little bit above those peers. Some are greatly above their peers, some are a little bit below their peers, but on average we're doing real well in the area of first to second year retention rates. The green dots on here are the national averages for retention rate. You can see they are moving up slightly, and we've been flat, so I think this is an area where we do expect and hope to see some growth. We are essentially right on our plan. Our target was 80.6. We're at 80.3, so we're just 0.3 of a percentage point below it, but essentially on our plan for the growth agenda in meeting these retention rates. 4- and 6-year graduation rates, again, another key indicator of how well we are doing at getting students through our programs, getting them in particular to graduation. The 4-year graduation rates, again, we've heightened this scale a little bit so you can see things. The bottom isn't 0, it's 20%. What you can see is that we are on track with both our 4- and 6-year graduation rates relative to our plans, where we're projecting we want to go in our more graduates plans. What's not shown on here is the national data. With the 6-year graduation rate, we run about 3 percentage points above the national average. We're at 59, almost 60%. The national average is around 56.5. The 4-year graduation rate is a little bit different story. This is an area that we are significantly below the national average, and if you take our individual institutions again and compare them to institutions with similar student bodies, almost all of our institutions set below the median of their peers in that regard. Now, if you compare them to some of the other peers in their system that aren't selected on the type of student body they have, then things fluctuate a little bit differently. But when you go in and say, what's the kind of student body you have, what's the ACT score coming in, what's their high school class rank, compared to those sorts of measures, what we find is that the 4-year graduation rate is something that we're below our peers on, but 6-year is above, almost always above. So we are getting them out, we just take a little bit longer to get there. We've worked on this, we've talked about it. We don't have a good answer to why that is. Most people have a feeling that it's the culture of the state to simply take a little longer. It doesn't appear to be that we have backlogs in a lot of courses throughout our campuses or institutions. Madison in particular has done a great job of bringing their 4-year rate up with the Madison Initiative, and there were some course blocks there that they took care of and have greatly improved their 4-year graduation rate because of that effort. But it is something that each of our institutions watch very, very closely.
Mark, just to, again, drill down.
Sure.
We heard at the conference in Madison, at least from one of our legislative participants, the leader, that expectation with regard to additional state funding was likely something we weren't going to see. I noticed that we had a little tick up in the 6-year graduation rate, but I also noticed that in between the 6 and the 5 is the 5-year graduation rate. And in fact, that number deteriorated a tick, with about half of our campuses improving and about half of our campuses deteriorating. And I would hope that we would continue to focus on our ongoing attempts to get more people into degrees quicker in and around the limited resources that we have in the system, and also in and around the issue of ongoing expanding debt across students and families. So I think that it might be helpful for us in the future to also share the 5-year data as well. You recall specifically in your last presentation, you talked about the reality of changing majors late adds a year to graduation. An issue for students and families, and also for faculty and administrators.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great point. I have with me data on the 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year graduation rate for the recent class. What you see is that of all the students that graduate within 6 years, about 45% of them graduate in 4 years. Okay, now this is of the students that graduated this past year. About 45% of them did it in 4 years. And then about another 40%, 45%, 48% did it in 5 years. So most of the students are graduating in that 4 and 5 year period. There's relatively small that graduate between the 5th and the 6th year. I don't have that laid out on a decade level, but I do have a slide that we can go to later to look at exactly how this splits out. But the 5-year graduation is really where most of our graduates are getting out. But you'll see when you look at these individual institutions and you look at 4-year graduation rates, 5-year graduation rates, 6-year graduation rates, even retention rates, you'll see that they fluctuate up and down, and depending on the size of the institution, the number of graduates you've got, that can be a significant, for small cohorts, that can be a significant fluctuation. It might be as much as 2 percentage points. What I like to do is watch this 10-year trend and not look at what happened last year to this year, because you can be fooled by these sort of little bumps and wiggles, natural fluctuations that are in there. You really need to look at what's happening over a period of time. We're looking okay. Our 4-year graduation rates are coming up. That's the nice thing. They aren't yet at the national average. Overall, our 5-year graduation rates are moving up. 6-year graduation rates are moving slowly upwards. They're a little more stagnant. But again, we're significantly above the national average there as well. So thank you.
Mark, maybe it would be helpful if you mentioned the effort to collect the 4-year degree templates. That is, we've been working with the campuses to get, for those degrees that can be completed in 4 years, a kind of pathway as to how a student would actually do that. And I think the next step will be, how do we actually use those then back in the advising process when new freshmen are thinking about coming in or have just come in. But you might say a word about that initiative, Mark.
Several years ago, we asked institutions to put together their 4-year graduation plans. What these are is exactly the courses that a student needs to take, including their general education and their major courses, to be able to complete a degree in 4 years. In some areas, that means completing your general education first and then your major. In some, it means spreading them out. And it's important then for students to see these early and to be advised about those. And for the most part, if you know kind of what area you're going into, or whether it's the sciences or the humanities, business, you can figure out how to lay these plans out and get some idea about whether or not you need to get into those gen eds and get them finished, or whether you need to be doing some majors and some of the gen ed and working through that. I see Regent Landis going over here. He's in one of those high credit count majors that he has to do a little gen ed and a whole bunch of major all the way through, and he's going to make it in 4 years because of the planning that is done to get that done. We're trying to collect those, and institutions, all of our institutions have those developed for their 4-year degree programs and are advising students off of those. We're even working closely with the technical colleges and getting them moved there so that the transfer students that are coming to our institutions will be able to start and effectively transfer without loss of time toward degree, or at least as little loss of time as possible. Yes.
My question has to do with, you mentioned the culture in Wisconsin. And this kind of ties in what we as a system can do to help change that culture. I've noticed that, and I want to tie this to financial. We know that the financial situation, the loan situation is something many students and parents are struggling with in our state. And my thought is, I know that when you apply for loans, there is a new education element that's been added between my first 2 and second 2 children. It wasn't there in the beginning. And my question then is anyone given any thought how we can help change this culture and possibly education early on about, if you get your stuff together like maybe Regent Landis is trying to do and you get out of here in a quicker time, this is how much you can save.
Yeah. One of the things, we're in a program called Complete College America, and one of the other institutions that's in Complete College America, they're also in Access to Success with us, is the University of Hawaii system. They've put together a program called 15 to Graduate, which is really an important marketing program. And they've done this statewide. They do it with grade school kids, but they also run it as an ad on TV at very selected times, like the middle of college football games. So when the rainbows are playing, this is running. When some other television programs are on that are going to really attract that high school age group, the junior and senior high school age group, and also then parents of those kids, they'll run this ad. And basically what it's saying is it's a real encouragement to take 15 credits per semester. And if you do that, we can graduate you in 4 years. And it's all around this getting done in 4. And they've seen a significant increase in their 4-year graduation rate. We're starting to think through whether or not we could get something like that put together and built up. Many of our institutions are doing it through their orientation programs and through their advising as well, sort of continually talking about making sure you're taking 15, even though, from the perspective of financial aid, to be full-time, considered full-time, you only need to take 12. That's not going to get it done. And making sure then students understand they need to select a major early on, take 15 credits, and move towards their graduation. Yes?
Just a comment about that. The interesting part about that is the data that they had collected supported higher grade point averages when the students took 15 credits rather than the 12 credits, which was very interesting because sometimes counselors have a tendency to advise students to take 12 credits if they're taking a difficult course load. But in actuality, if they balance the course load and ensure that they take 15, their grade point actually ends up being higher.
That's correct. And, and I've run into the point you make of counselors telling them to take 12. That's especially true in some of our high school programs. I work with the Avid TOPS program, and in meeting with students there, one of the other people that's on the advisory group, as they were talking to students, these students were about ready to go off to college, his advice to them was, in your first year, only take 12 credits per semester. He said, you need time to figure out how to land. And I had to correct that. I said, you need to get into these and get your workload set. Get your study skills set. 15 credits, if you're not taking 15, you're going to be paying more for your education. One of the things this system does to help encourage that is to band our tuition. A student that takes 15 credits pays the same amount as a student that takes 12. So if you're only taking 12, you're in essence throwing away 3 credits you've already paid for. And we try to encourage students to understand that. But it isn't, at 18, 19 years old, it's still getting that message across that this can help, this will help you get out on time and on into a career. Yes.
Mark, do we have any significant data on the difference between the transfer students, say, from the college system and the 2-year contract program or tech system, or for that matter, even the Covenant scholars? Do we have any significant data on that?
We do have data on the tech college and the UW colleges. We don't have data, I don't have data on the Covenant scholars. What we do find, let me see if I can find this. Oh, let's hit the right button. So it's an important question, if I can find the data.
Will we have it on the Covenant, or was it too short?
We can get it on the Covenant. It can be a little bit harder to get to. This is the data on, it was the data on. There we go. Stay. Good. What you can see here is that students, this is students that transferred by different sources. So here's students that, on the far left, are students that transferred from a 4-year UW, transferred from a colleges, transferred from a technical college, and then transferred other. So that's the privates and internationals and things. What you can see is that those students that started our colleges really do finish much more quickly and have a higher graduation rate than those that come from the tech colleges. There are some significant barriers, making sure that everything transfers for one. There are some transfer issues. We're working many of those out. But also, the advising is, the students that are at the colleges, all of those students, the goal at the colleges is to transfer them to the UW system. That's not the same with the students that came out of the tech colleges. Also, many of the students coming from the tech colleges didn't necessarily direct transfer. They're out working for a while. What we record is the last college degree.
What about their performances?
those are a little harder to track, and when you have to get back to the individual institutions and say, how do they do in their classes, and what are GPAs? I did a study of this while I was at Stevens Point. Several other institutions have done it as well. Take, what happens for a student coming from not the colleges, but a particular college to my institution, a particular tech college to my institution. And what you could see is that, in particular with the colleges, those students would complete their at least 60 credits, get their associate's degree. They had no trouble. Their GPAs were actually higher than the students that started on our campus, and their graduation rates were higher. Yeah, Chad?
Just a couple questions / comments here. First one, coming back to we talking about high school counselors, junior, senior year of high school. What are we doing to work with those counselors to come across that it is very important to take these 15 credits like you'd mentioned? With the UW system, are we working with high schools across the state to send this point, get the message across? Our chancellors of all the various universities, are we working with these high schools so that students understand that 12 credits puts you out at 5 years and adds an extra 10, 20,000 with living expenses to your college or to your college experience?
We do have an annual conference with counselors between the UW system and them so that we can update them on all sorts of aspects of the curriculum and enrollment, admissions, those sorts of things. But it's an annual conference for the advisors. Yes.
And then my second point would be we talk about budgeting and funding being an issue. And I know a lot of universities struggle to hire enough faculty to man the student body. And with that comes advising. And especially at UW-Platteville, we have some faculty members that are just for freshmen and sophomores that aren't necessarily teachers, but they are employees on the campus that advise students. I feel it is very important if we are utilizing these faculty members to also educate them on 12 credits versus the 15 and the classes they need to take, especially in terms of prerequisites. A lot of these faculty members don't understand the prerequisites for certain classes that you need to take, and by total accident, just not knowing, now a student faces 5 years instead of 4 because they forgot to take a math class to get into chemistry, for example. So with funding and faculty being an issue, how are we as a system going to address this to educate advisors and faculty members moving forward?
The issues that you bring up are issues that we really need to solve at the campus level, at the institution level. The system is going to have a lot of trouble going in and looking at the details of day-to-day advising, those sorts of things. We have some good policies and guidelines set up. Our institutions, I know, work very hard at making sure advising is effective, and many of our institutions are starting to move towards impactful advising. I'm blanking on the word I really want. Intrusive advising. And we're seeing that grow and develop throughout the system, and that will be a big help. Also, several of our institutions are starting to use products that are developed outside the university to help us advise students better, to meet not just their academic needs, but some of their personal needs. Regent Drew.
Mark, aren't we sort of fighting another trend, especially like on a campus like this, which is the increased amount of time that students are working? And so how do you deal with that? And if somebody stops out for a year and works, that really isn't increasing the cost of their education. So I wonder if you could comment on that, because it seems like we got two different things kind of going against each other.
Yeah, especially for those students that are paying their own way and for which that's difficult to do. There are students that stop out for a semester or a full year, and the cost of their education doesn't really go up by doing that. Their long-term cost to themselves does, right, because they don't get into their profession quite as quickly. But the cost of the education remains relatively similar. Several of our institutions, I think of Oshkosh in particular, has put a great deal of money on the table for work study and increasing the work study available to students, being able to get students working on the campus, which is always a better situation. Travel times are down. You've got people you're working for that understand sort of the nuances of being a college student, that you're going to sometimes need some time off to prepare for that midterm, those sorts of things. So there are, and I like, Debbie talked about it a little bit with the Parkside initiative as well. This is a serious issue in the amount of time that students work. And if we can keep their, especially off-campus work, down to under about 20 credits, seems to be, 20 hours per week seems to be the sort of the golden number. You exceed that, being able to carry a full load, being able to be successful is very limited. There are students that can do it, but they're kind of a unique student. So those are all things that our, especially our chief student affairs officers understand and help our institutions figure out how to address some of those issues. Summary of some of these goals, and a couple of things here aren't actually in our goals, aren't in the accountability report, but I think they're important for you as Regents to know about, for us to keep track of. We're on track with our undergraduate degrees conferred. This is our 2012 numbers, which is what's in the accountability report. I do know that the 2013 numbers, we're actually up. We're a little over 1,000, 1,066 above our target for the 2013 academic year. Retention rates, 4-year graduation rates, 6-year graduation rates, as we said, are really on target. We're off a little tiny bit in the 6-year graduation rate and the retention rate. Looking at those new transfer students, this group that you were asking about during Chancellor Ford's presentation, are we tracking them? The answer is yes. They're doing fairly well. Their retention rates are high and above the targets that we've set. Their 4-year and 6-year graduation rates are also high. You look at these 4-year graduation rates and say they're 54%, and for our freshmen they're only 28%. That's not an apples-to-apples comparison. These students are bringing a bunch of credits in when they transfer. They're closer to being able to finish. So you can't really compare the transfer rates to the new freshman rates. It's not apples-to-apples at all. But what we see is that our rates for those transfer students are very good. It's hard to get national benchmark data on transfer student retention, graduation rates. So we have to work with what our targets are and how we're doing relative to where we're planning to be. And we're way ahead of target on our transfer students. Yes?
I don't know where to put this question, so I'm going to put it here.
Sure.
If it's better here than anywhere else. I haven't heard, nor have I seen in this fistful of accountability reports, how many remedial classes we have to provide on all of our campuses. And that has an impact on 4-year graduation, on 6-year graduation, on cost of education, on what kind of faculty or staff has to be adjusted. And I think there's a story that we have to deal with there and some figures we have to have there. And I don't know if we have them across. I thought they would have been in these accountability reports. I thought there would have been something from each campus. I think once I've heard in the last, for almost 3 months now that I've been on the board, that I heard that Madison has one mediation course in math. Blows my mind if that's true. It must be a screening of students that's one of the best in the country. But that's what I want to know, because I want to know why they're not ready, if they're just not ready through motivation or preparation or anything else. And I just want, if you can't answer it now, I don't mean to prolong this right now, but it's something that's got to fit somewhere in this discussion.
Regent Farrell, thank you very much for the question. And at the Education Committee meeting this afternoon, we'll get a half an hour's worth of getting into that.
But I'm on another committee.
I understand that. I will be back in December to do a report to the full board on remediation. So unfortunately, you've got to wait 2 months for the answer to this. However, let me say, remediation has never been part of the accountability report. Instead, we have done, the Regent policy asks that every 3 years we report on the status of remediation within the system. And that report was actually supposed to occur last year. But at that time, there was a lot of sort of national attention to remediation, and we wanted to make sure we put that report in the context of the national literature and the national discussion. And so we've taken a year to understand what that is and to place this report in that specific area. And we'll be getting that report out And we've developed a lot further than we usually do, so you'll see a much expanded report at the December meeting.
Okay, and that's terrific, and I'll look forward to it, and I'll scrutinize it when it comes.
Yep.
My reaction is it's kind of like changing a K-12 curriculum. You're missing the kids who need it right now because you're spending so much time talking about it. And I'm concerned not about this room or anything that happens in this area. I'm concerned about the K-12 preparation and how it's reflected, because it's not, the answers aren't going to be necessarily in our area. They're going to be in the previous year's experiences. And I'm very concerned that we're not addressing that. And I don't want that to become the culture of the state.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a real nuanced answer to the questions that you're raising as we look at this remediation report and bring it out. There's a lot of things that go into determining who ends up in a remediation program, how well they're served, what it means to their retention rates, their graduation rates. And there's actually some really good information in that, really positive results in that. There's some things that we absolutely have to work on. There's some things we clearly want to partner and have been partnering with DPI on as well, especially in regards to the Common Core. All right.
Mark, if I could just go back to early on, one of the first things you addressed was this business of STEM. And I didn't raise my question at that point because I wasn't clear on whether we'd wait till the end to have the question. So let me make my observation and my request. In July, we had Jeff Imholt here, of course, from GE, talking about the prudence of Wisconsin looking forward to advanced engineering, et cetera, et cetera. And while these data point out that we are graduating and granting, deferring an increasing number of degrees in the STEM arena, what we're not showing is that across our array of all offerings, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have about 1,950 different programs across our campuses. But if we go back a half a dozen years and look at the percentage within the array pointing at the STEM direction, actually the percentage of our array in STEM is down. It's not up. And so I don't know what the answer is here in that regard, but I think it's an interesting dilemma and worth a conversation. I would hope that in future reports you might focus a little attention on that distinction.
Yeah, that's an interesting case to pull out, and I don't know the numbers because what Regent is talking about is the number of programs that we offer, and what I have reflected in this is the number of graduates that we have, and those are two different things. What we are seeing is this growth in the number of graduates in the STEM and engineering fields. What I don't have and don't know off the top of my head is how the actual programs that we're offering in those areas have grown and changed relative to other offerings that we have. Regent Gal? Or Regent Chancellor Gal, wait. Field promotion.
I was struck on the one chart, we were often visiting engineering and health professions. Those are really the most expensive programs that we have at our campuses and where the faculty salaries are the highest, and that underscores the urgency of the compensation challenge. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Looking at a couple of our other accountability reports, we look especially at closing these achievement gaps. We know that the percentage of students in the population that are underrepresented minorities is growing. We're serving more and more of them. How are we doing with their measures of success? And one of the goals of our program is to cut by 2015 the retention rate and graduation rates, that gap between majority students and underrepresented minorities, cut that gap in half by 2015. What you can see is for underrepresented minorities, we're pretty much on track to do that. Now, in our report and in the accountability report, we don't look at transfer students, but I wanted to show you that to answer some of the questions that came up earlier. We can see that our retention rates, we've actually hit our 2015 goal, but our 6-year graduation rate has gone the wrong way. But again, there's a lot of fluctuation in some of these numbers. We also looked at the achievement gaps for our Pell-eligible students. This is a way for us to measure sort of the economic background of these students, students who are eligible to receive the federal Pell Grant versus those students who are not eligible to receive a federal Pell Grant, and compare their retention and graduation rates. Again, in our accountability report, we don't report out on transfer students, but as you have said, they're an important mix here, and we've got to track them as well. What we see is for the Pell-eligible students, our gap is actually widening in both retention rate and our 6-year graduation rate. It's not going in the right direction. And I want to pull all of this apart. It's a nuanced argument, and I just want to show you one graph. And bear with me, I know this isn't going to be easy to hold all in your head at one time, but what I've shown here is the solid colored lines, whether they're red or blue. Those are non-underrepresented minority students. In other words, think of them as majority students. They're white students, Asian students, not Southeast Asian, and international students included as well, Heather? No. So it's just white students and Asian students, anybody that doesn't fall into one of the underrepresented minorities. The blue line is for those students that are not Pell eligible, and the red line is for those that are Pell eligible. So amongst these two categories, students of the same racial background, what we see is there's a real drop-off for those Pell eligible students starting for the 04 class. So these are students that began in 04. I'll remind you something that happened. 05 and 06, we had significant tuition increases, really large, double-digit percentage-wise tuition increases. In 2008, when these 04 students would have just, in 05, those students would have been 1 year from graduating in 6 years. We had the recession hit. So these students faced some remarkable challenges, and they were the ones without the financial resources to sort of ride those out. The blue line, those students, again, majority students, but with better financial resources. The dashed lines are underrepresented minority students. Again, the blue dash is for those that aren't Pell eligible. The thing that's really impressive here is that group's just completely, really seen the most significant increase in their graduation rates. We're doing a great job of working with them and bringing them up. Where we really have a problem is with the underrepresented minority students who are also Pell eligible. 35% graduation rate, and it's relatively flat. It's not increasing. One of the things, though, that I'm struck by in this is the dichotomy between the solid lines and the dotted lines. The dotted lines are all underrepresented minority, regardless of income. The solid lines are all majority students, regardless of income. There's no class of underrepresented minority that does as well as the majority students. So we've got a lot of work to do in closing these gaps, especially focusing on the underrepresented minority. Even though it looks like we've closed gaps, there's still a great deal of disparity, but especially for those that are economically challenged and Pell eligible. Okay. One sort of last point with, we've talked a lot about faculty salaries. It comes up everywhere we go. In this particular chart, I'm showing the Wisconsin personal income per capita as a percent of the U.S. average. So over the last, 30 years here, this is sort of a look at how Wisconsin citizens have fared in general. What's the per capita income? And we're running sort of back in 1980, we were on average, it's had the same per capita income as everybody else. We've dropped it a little bit, but you can see that we've wavered around about 95%, plus or minus a little bit around that, of per capita income. The next thing that I'm going to show you is I'm going to bring up the faculty salaries for comprehensive full professors. And I'm going to plot on the same graph their percentage of their peers. So how have they fared relative to their peers in comparison to how the Wisconsin per capita has fared? So if you look at what's happened to UW comprehensive full professors, and they are by far the ones that are out of whack the most, but we can look at others if you'd like to. What you see when you compare them to their peers, they are 20% below their peers, and they have fallen drastically from 1990. So over this period of time from 99 to 2012, we've seen that this group of individuals in particular is not keeping pace economically with their peers, and relative to the people of Wisconsin, have fallen drastically relative to people of Wisconsin. This is an issue we've got to solve. Most of our institutions have been able to close the assistant professor gaps, but you've got to hire them. We're in a competitive market. You hire in at the assistant level for the most part. You've got to be competitive with those. The associates at Madison and at Milwaukee are pretty close. The associate professors at the comprehensives are lagging noticeably, about 15%. The full professors on all of our campuses are not keeping pace with peers. Just a couple last points. Faculty diversity, faculty staff diversity. We see that for our educational staff, we've seen a nice increase in the percentage of diversity. We're still not on target with what the population in the state is, and much of the increase has been in the Asian population. Amongst administrators, we're only at about 10%, and almost all of the growth there has been in the Hispanic and Latina community, represented in administrative positions. And finally, this is a number we see a lot is our administrative spending per student. We're at half of what is the national average. We have to be a little bit careful with that because we know we've got some things that DOA takes care for us that on at other institutions in other states is paid for by the institution. I think the important thing to look at here is how our percentage relative to the national average has gone down. It was at 56%, went as low as 47, we're at 51. So while our administrative spending per student has gone up, relative to our peers, we're holding at about the same percent level because we don't have a way to do apples to apples comparison with what we spend because there are some differences in here. Okay. Yes?
Mark, thank you for your presentation and for all this data. No one likes it more than I. But I do have to raise a question about this administrative spending because I felt that was the weakest section in the accountability reports. If you look carefully at those pages, you'll see there's not a dollar amount listed anywhere. You can't find categories of expenditure by categories that would be meaningful to most of those outside of academe. And almost 10 years ago, the Legislative Audit Bureau did a study of administrative spending. And I presented to the Board of Regents, and that memory is so vivid because a then regent took me aside afterwards and said, "Your message flopped like a freshly caught mackerel." So I hope I do better today. But I just do want to point out that the sole metric for administrative spending, if I'm understanding it correctly, is what's called institutional support. And that's how we code certain administrative positions. And I just want to point out to my regent colleagues that there's a strong, strong incentive to code positions to anything other than institutional support. And I remember back in the day that, not to pick on UW-Madison, but at the College of Letters and Sciences, there were absolutely no administrative positions because they were all coded to the other categories. So I'm hopeful that in future reports we'll have, this is an important metric. It is used nationally. I understand that. It is the best comparison with other schools. But I think in the non-university lexicon, there are other ways to look at administrative costs, and I hope we'll see some absolute numbers, not just these percentages and comparisons with others. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. One final point, though, while I have the floor. I do think in a few cases, I really did like a lot of the data that's presented, but in a few cases we overuse percentages. Obviously, if you have a low base, a percentage increase can be greatly inflated. Absolutely. And I particularly felt that when we were looking at the tables of minority participation in anything, work or students, if you look at the absolute numbers on some of the campuses, they're very, very low. And I think that speaks to what Regent Menedith said so eloquently, that there's more that needs to be done.
That's right.
So thank you.
That's right. And you raise an excellent point. One of the real challenges with a system-wide report is you lose a lot of granularity at the campus level and what institutions are doing. And that's what's really important about having the institutional reports as companion pieces to this report as well. So thank you.
Mark?
Yes?
I can't leave well enough alone without making some comment or just an observation. First, let me start with a little bit of levity, and it had to do with the the 4 years, 6 years, and all of that. And I think there's another group that we need to talk about, and that's those students that are conducting tours of the campuses for parents or other students. And I'll just convey, and I know Provost DeLuca's here. When my son was looking at Madison, my wife and my son went to Madison, and they got a tour. And the young man that was giving them the tour was very eloquent about the campus and the programs, and just went on and on and on. And almost towards the very end, ended by saying, you know, these have been the best 6 years of my life. And after the tour was concluded, my wife went up to him privately and said, you know, I loved everything you said except for the last part. And you are every mother's worst dream about their son or daughter coming to college. So I hope that maybe we instruct our student tour guides not to be so either candid or optimistic about, 6 years are the best years of my life here at the university. And so there's a little bit of levity, but I think we also need to think about what is the message that our own students are conveying about their university experience. The other thing also, Mark, that I just want to comment on is, and I want to thank you for all the data that you've given here. My concern with diversity and students of color that come to the university is, to be perfectly honest, I am optimistic that the numbers are going to increase in terms of the enrollment. But one of the things that I keep repeating about university education, it's an either-or experience. After the experience, you either have your diploma or who cares. And so my concern is always going to be focused on what about the graduations. And to be perfectly honest, I don't care whether it's in 4 years or 6 years. I hope it's more around the 4 years. But we really need to also focus and get information what is happening around graduation. Because I am not one of those individuals that believes just the fact that you had the university experience was a good experience. The reality of life, and I would say that far more for students of color or individuals of color, we either get that degree or unfortunately people are going to say, who cares? So I would hope that part of the discussion also is around the graduation, not just simply how many more students of color can we bring into the system.
Thank you. We are running a little short on time, so let me turn this over to Chancellor Patterson. We'll have Chancellor Patterson talk a little bit about what's going on at Stevens Point, and then Chancellor Wells, followed by Paul DeLuca to talk about the UW-Madison report. Thank you.
Do I need to hold this down? No, only if you hold that down. I'm not as animated as he is. Well, first of all, thank you to Chancellor Ford for hosting. And we have a team here taking notes and learning about how you're doing it here at Parkside because we're hosting next October. And so we appreciate the tutoring and the way we've been received in that effort. Next October, I will be reporting to the board in some detail about our new vision and strategic plan for the university, our partnership with thriving communities. For the next 5 or 6 minutes, I want to give you just a thumbnail sketch of that. Our partnership with thriving communities is grounded in 4 areas: sustainable communities, vibrant communities, healthy communities, and prosperous communities. Our provost has been the main architect of this initiative. But basically, what we're doing is making the university, pledging that the university will be more relevant to community issues, more responsive to community problems. We have created, in that regard, a cornerstone for our Prosperous Community Initiative, a special assistant to the Chancellor for Economic Development. This position has several functions. The internal functions include technology transfer of faculty research to the marketplace, working closely with WISEC, but complementing what that organization does. Developing new revenue streams, helping us improve efficiency and effectiveness of our internal business operations, and helping affirm, I say affirm, not change, campus climate that we are discovering is quite eager for this kind of opportunity. I was frankly a little concerned about how many applications we would have for the RADI grants, and we might have to actually go around and kind of encourage people to do that. That's not the case. We're going to have 6 or 7 or maybe 8 proposals, some people doing more than one. Just walked into the faculty senate faculty senate meeting the other day, and the vice chair walks up and says, "We've just finished a meeting with the new economic development person in our department, and we have several ideas that we want to pursue." This position also will bring together several programs on our campus, not organizationally, but functionally. Our School of Business, the Wisconsin Institute for Sustainable Technology, the Small Business Development Institute, the Central Wisconsin Economic Research Bureau, and our research facility on the shores of Lake Superior. External functions include taking the lead in facilitating public and private partnerships, to work with a range of constituents to develop and implement business creation, retention, and attraction strategies, particularly with the Chamber of Commerce in central and northern Wisconsin, economic development authorities in this part of the state, Synergy and the others, with city and county government, with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, with cabinet officers, business CEOs, and with the UW system. The position requirements for this position are in the position description you find in your materials, but basically we were looking for someone with 7 to 10 years of experience. It's not a position to cut your teeth on. We knew we would get probably 1 of 2 types applying, either CEOs or retired CEOs or partially retired CEOs, or those who had made a career out of economic development. We were fortunate. The person that we hired in this position has both of those. He brings a great deal of economic experience, economic development experience, and has also served as a CEO in the manufacturing area, so he knows what it means to meet a payroll. He is Dave Ekman, and I would like to introduce him today, but he's in the Northwoods meeting with the Community Advisory Committee of our Tree Haven operation there, the almost 1,000-acre research and training facility that we have in that part of the state. His first 100 days have been exceptional. For example, one of the internal projects that he's worked on is our new River Point paper. Now, you think the paper industry is struggling, and it has, and it continues to struggle. But it is also the 3rd manufacturing driver in the state, the 3rd manufacturing driver in the state. Paper conversion is the 4th manufacturing driver in the state. We have noticed on our campus that our art students are using very expensive paper. Our paper engineering students and faculty reverse engineered this paper. It's mostly produced in Europe, and decided that we could produce it on campus because we have, a paper making machine. Well, it's just not a case of our students in the paper science program creating this product. It's an opportunity to develop a business and go to market with it. So our paper science students are involved in the production and getting it to market. Our business students are developing a business plan. Our communication students are developing a marketing plan. And our art and design students are developing the packaging for this product. The outcomes are quite clear. It is a real-world experience, learning to take an idea, an innovation, and get it to the marketplace. That's something you just don't learn sitting in the classroom. It also provides a nice revenue stream, we expect. It won't be a lot of money, but it'll be enough to help maintain the paper science program and the upkeep of the paper-making machine, and that, to me, is budget relief. Let me give you just an example or two of what he's doing externally. Skyward, a company that has been in the news a bit in the past year and a half in Wisconsin, is a Portage County, Stevens Point company, grew up. It's one of those stories started in the garage by 2 alums and been quite successful. By the way, we are particularly thankful to the governor and to the Joint Finance Committee for the actions that they've taken to keep Skyward in Wisconsin and saved several hundred jobs in the process. But they need to hire 50 more programmers. So we're partnering with Mid-State Technical College, and we are flipping the curriculum. Typically, incoming students, first-year students, start with general education requirements. We're going to start these students with the basic computer science courses they need so they can be in the workplace and effective at Skyward as soon as possible. And then we will catch up with their general education courses and the other courses that enhance their major as they move through the four-year program. Another example that I'll use externally that this position is working on is a major employer in central Wisconsin, one that I will not name this morning, is owned by a parent company outside the state. The parent company has somewhat struggled with understanding the core business of this employer, but does understand it enough that they want to add 200 jobs to this type of work. What they haven't decided is, are those jobs coming to Wisconsin or are they going to Kansas? When the CEO and I talked about this issue, we immediately involved Dave Eggman in the conversation. He is now at the table helping lead this effort to bring those jobs to Wisconsin and not to Kansas. Why is this different? In the past, the economic development people, be it from the city, the state, or Synergy, would say, and by the way, we have a nice university down the street. They produce great graduates. Today, we are at the table in those conversations. We are bringing the full weight of the university to bear on those conversations. The concern of the employer is not only the workforce, but will the workforce be there in 5 years from now? And we can say definitively, we've been here 120 years, and we're going to be here for the next 120 years producing the workers that you need. Our faculty and staff want to be involved in these activities. They want to start businesses, but we have to support them. It is our job to support the faculty and staff in these endeavors. I say ours, mine, and the board's as well. I think there are 3 things that we really need to do to help the faculty and the staff be more innovative. One is to establish the right climate on campus, a climate that encourages and supports these endeavors. Secondly, we have to assure that the faculty and staff have the time to innovate. There's a lot of talk about workload, but I can tell you, having taught full-time myself for 17 years, when you finish a 10-hour day, you go home, you help with dinner, get the kids ready for bed, look at homework. At 10:30 at night is not the time to expect people to be innovative and creative. That dog won't hunt. And thirdly, we have to establish the necessary infrastructure on our campuses to make this innovation work. We would very much like to occupy the space that's about to be vacated by Mid-State Technical College and develop an innovation center there, but we are running into, we expect, issues of regulations and rules and formulas and all the things that you expect in trying to lease property, and we're going to need the help of this board to get that done. So where will all this lead? Well, we don't know for sure, but that's okay. We must be willing to take chances. Earlier in my career, I was very planful. Everything had to be organized. I liked every I dotted, every T crossed. I had my colleagues teased me quite a bit about the analysis I went through in deciding where to go to graduate school. That's a luxury I could afford then because I was only responsible for myself. But that kind of thinking and that sort of action or lack of action for an organization will lead to what I call analysis paralysis. And that we cannot afford. The time for bold action is now. We must be willing to act even if all the parameters are not known. We must be willing to act even if the plan is not complete. We must be willing to act, some would say, when the opportunity presents itself. I would say we must be willing to act and make those opportunities available. Most importantly, we must be willing to fail. This I do know. We're going to be criticized, and I'm sure we will. But it will be because we did the wrong thing. It won't be because we did nothing. Thank you for your attention. I'll hold it for you.
Okay, that's good. Actually, it's going to make my presentation twice as long because being half Italian, if I have one finger down on this, I only use one hand. So, thank you, Bernie. With respect to making sure Provost DeLuca has plenty of time to give his very important presentation, I'll try to do mine very quickly.
our provost handed around, Provost Ernst, a little handout here. Those of you who were on the board last February got a chance to hear me present in great detail our strategic plan update, the types of things that you heard this morning from Chancellor Ford. I did back in February. She did a great job this morning. I think Dick Telfer is going to do a similar thing tomorrow for UW-Madison. So the idea of all this, of course, as we know, is to give you some real examples on-the-ground initiatives that we're doing that are leading to some of the outcomes that you saw, where it shows that we have sustained improvement in terms of things you're holding us accountable to. You also saw some things in your report that we need to improve. I'm afraid I'm going to have to add the execution of my mother's Italian meatball recipe. I'll have to do a better job of that so I can win next time. But what I thought I would do is just quickly bring to your attention some things that are going on right now that are related mostly to economic and workforce development. I'll spend just a little bit more time on the workforce development initiatives that UW-Oshkosh is going. A handout that you have, and I have extra copies for people in the audience, is a Newswave magazine, which is a featured story that was done on UW-Oshkosh. It's a publication of our Chamber of Commerce. So you can look at some of the things that we've been doing over the last decade to really redouble our efforts to do a better job integrating workforce development and economic development. Inside, you'll also see the remarks that I provided at the opening address this year in our campus in terms of the kind of issues and challenges that we need to face up to and the things that we're doing to meet those challenges. You'll also see an article that was put out to show how our faculty are really the ones that are in the forefront at UW-Oshkosh and our UW institutions, leading very transformative, innovative change. Sometimes faculty take, particularly in the state of Wisconsin, undeserved criticism that they somehow are in the way. And I can tell you, having been here now my 14th year of Chancellor, there's nothing further from the truth. Our faculty, in a lot of ways, are hard to keep up with in terms of how innovative and creative they are. So you can take a look at some of the things they've led there. You also see an update on the University Studies program that Provost Ernst told you about several different times. It's receiving national attention. This is really designed to do a lot of different things to help improve UW-Oshkosh's area of better graduation rates, faster time to degree, fewer credit hours to degree, closing the achievement gaps. It's a macro-level strategy that's transformed our general education. It's being featured as one of the 5 most important transformations of general education to watch in the country. So you can kind of get an idea what it is and why there's so much excitement around it. There's also an update on the majors that you approved that are collaboratively delivered by the New Era institutions. That's UW Green Bay, UW-Oshkosh, College of Nominations, our UW colleges in Northeast Wisconsin, and all of our technical colleges. This is one of the most creative programs to deliver 3 new baccalaureate degree programs in electrical engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology, and environmental engineering technology. The baccalaureate degree will be offered either by Green Bay or Oshkosh, but will be delivered by all those institutions together. It's a multiple entry, multiple exit model. There are 72 businesses in Northeast Wisconsin who want to have a member of one of the advisory boards to help move that program forward and support it, provide internships, and actually help with some of the instruction. So we're very excited about it. It's very challenging. There's a lot of complications with it. We want to thank you for approving it, and we're moving forward quite aggressively with that program. There's another little article in here about our new EMBA program, as well as a center for executive education center that we opened in Appleton. You can kind of take a look at those particular initiatives. There's also a major initiative that we're involved with our county, our city, our technical college in the UW-Oshkosh Business Accelerator at the Oshkosh Aviation Business Park. That's about an $11 million initiative. It's a collaborative effort. The city, the county, the university, the technical college, Chamco, our industrial development group. We've raised 85% of the $11 million. And put a little pitch, that's one you're going to see. We're asking for a couple $1 million to close it out so we can have shovels in the ground this summer and coming into the fall. So you can kind of see what that's designed to do to help support businesses with a state-of-the-art model for accelerator centers with a focus on aviation, but some of the other major cluster industries that we've identified in our community that need our help and support on how we're doing that together. So you can kind of look through that. And then the final thing, there's a little article here on the way that we're working, multiple ways that we're working with K through 12 to help advance their agenda and our agenda so that we can have better success with our students, their students. There are many things that we're doing. One of the distinctive features that UW-Oshkosh is doing, has been doing that for quite a long time, is a CAP program you know about, the largest one in our state. But as importantly, we've been working very carefully through our College of Education and helped founded Wisconsin's first Rural Education Association for K through 12 institutions to help create collaboration and offer the kind of courses using internet technology, one thing or another, that rural schools aren't able to do. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellors. We are going to call Paul DeLuca, Provost from UW-Madison, to do his report, and we'll have him come up to the front here so we all have the, so we can see him like we could not see our last two chancellors from this angle.
Thank you, Chairman Falbo. I appreciate being granted an extra few minutes to get this done. I'll try and be as efficient as possible for you, but I'll try and keep it above the pointless level, so I can only be so efficient in that process. And the other problem is, of course, you have back-to-back presentations by provosts, both of whom are hardcore physicists, so you're going to wind up with a data-rich environment, which I'm quite comfortable with. So let me start with the output. This is our most important accomplishment, and it's the productivity level of degrees. And you can see that this has been tracking with very modest increases over, literally measured in less than 10% over this entire period. The distribution of bachelors has been relatively constant, some fluctuations in the masters, and a very high level of productivity with respect to the doctoral PhD programs. This has been on target and is about at the limit of what we have the facility and capability to do. We worked very hard on this whole question of six-year graduation and average time to degree. Let me point out that there is a nuance here. We don't count each semester on an equal footing. Okay, you don't count it in terms of FTE credit hours per semester, which would be a weighted time spent towards degree. We just tend to count calendar clocks, which can be a bit artificial in many cases, and therefore you'll never see the six-year graduation rate taper to where you believe it should go because of that. In any case, we've driven the six-year graduation rate up quite high over the last decade or so. We're up around 83%. We've been as high as 84%. And if you normalize that number nationally for our typical flagship campuses to the population on those campuses, it's actually quite a good number. In other words, very big public institutions seem to be in the zone of 80 to 91%, 85 to 91. Now, we need to take this higher, but we're now in the limited return mode. My sort of stretch goal would be to get to 88 to 90% and try and understand what the other percent that's missing is doing that's not getting them graduation. Are they just simply folding their cards, or are they doing something entirely different, which is not impossible to occur. The time to degree is about 4.15, and a bit of a dichotomy is how can you have a time to graduation rate that's 83% and a time to degree at 4.15? They don't seem to jive. And the reason is the distribution in the graduation rate. This is the pace of graduation in terms of calendar years of effort. And you can see the bulk of the graduation takes place in the typical, what you would call the typical four-year academic degree effort. Then there's a tail of individuals, often in education or engineering, where it's almost impossible to finish in 4 calendar years. And they graduate in the next semester and some in the next 2 semesters. And then the target area for us, I believe, is that 5 to 6 year period. We should be taking a closer look and trying to understand what's causing those individuals to stretch out to that time period. An ideal goal would be somewhere just around 4.08 would be my best effort calculation to get us there. But quite frankly, we do pretty well on this number. Whoops, Mark, you're right. This thing's jumpy. This is virtually the same way of looking at the data Mark presented. Of course, it's just for the Madison campus. Let me call your attention to the upper table, which is low-income student enrollment. We score those by Pell Grants, sort it by tuition residency, and you see some pattern differences there that are not surprising. The thing to focus on is probably the Madison, Wisconsin residents, which is about 19.4, and that's the percent of the total minority population receiving Pell Grants. And then you go to the bottom and you see similar kinds of effects. Now keep in mind, non-U.S. residents are not Pell eligible, of course, so they get precluded from that data. So you get a flavor of that distribution. I won't comment on the financial aid other than to say we've done dramatically better as a result of the Madison initiative. It's allowed us to funnel a very significant amount of money back into our financial aid program. And of course, we've worked on financial aid in general, but that single program had an almost doubling effect on the financial aid. Removing barriers, okay. This is an asset problem for the most part, but not completely. All right. Do you have enough physical plan and human capital to provide the instructional matters that you need? And do you have it organized in such a fashion people can take it over a reasonable time period to graduate? And this is just a beauty contest in a sense. This is a polling of the students. Was it true for you or was it not true? And it would be lovely to get these numbers up a little bit, and they never go down. We've been working hard, and they've always been going up. Pace of going up could improve, quite frankly. And I think the big difficulty there is the first year, because for us, that's a huge funnel. Out of the inverted funnel, out of that pipe, the students go to the various schools and colleges, but in the first year, they're taking a fairly common curriculum and putting enormous stress on the system. And if we could figure out how to do that a little bit more effectively, these numbers would jump. And to talk about the numbers, you saw the graduation numbers from some of the other campuses, et cetera. These are our instructional numbers for an academic year in some of these courses. And these are the high-intensity courses typically taken in the first 3 to 4 semesters. You can see economics is almost 3,000 enrollees. But economics and psychology, which are wickedly popular, but virtually everything below that is a STEM-related course. All right, those are physics, math, and chemistry, just what you'd expect. It's curious at the Madison campus we use for math 234 the title calculus of functions of variables, but to me that's a very old-fashioned way of looking at it. I'm sure that's been true for the last 50 years or something. And these are the data shown by the U.S. Department of Energy. So you've seen Mark's data on this for the system. These are for the Madison campuses. And the designation, if you see here, of the different categories, it really comes from the Department of Education. They're very curious designations, and you have courses that don't slot very well into those kind of things. I simplified that, and I break it down to the 3 typical pillars that one sees at a comprehensive: arts and humanities, biological and physical sciences, and the social studies. And this gives you a relative distribution of the student population amongst those 3 pillars of education that we typically see. And that pattern has been systematically changing with time. Namely, there's been an increase in arts and humanities and bio and physical sciences, and a slight decrease in social sciences, which also includes education. And you saw some of those data were true for other campuses in the system. I'm going to, in the interest of saving you from some of this, I'm going to skip a bit of this and get to another issue that I think I've been rather passionate about and made some progress, but not where we need to be. And this is the retention graduation rate. In the upper panel, you see 2 red and blue lines. Red is all students, and the blue are targeted minority students, underrepresented minority students. And by working extraordinarily hard, we've virtually eliminated the retention rate. That's the retention rate from the first year to the second year. Lots of things contributed to that. Early intervention, aggressive advising, a couple very unique learning environments, we call them whistle laboratories, have really revolutionized that. And I'd say the most important tactical thing is early intervention. And by early, I don't mean we wait until end of October, November. I mean, we wait until the second week of September and get in there and do something active. It takes a very active and aggressive process. But if you do it, this is the kind of results you can get. But then you look to the lower panel, and this is the percent graduation rate, and while it's been getting better, there's still a 14% gap. So what's doing that? And it's the easiest way to see it is look visually at the pattern of graduation enrollment and not enrolled. Okay, so here this is for all students. This is 07. You can see starting at the left, year one, everyone's enrolled. Obviously, no one's had an opportunity to drop out yet. In the second year, you see the majority, 96% are enrolled, and 4% haven't enrolled, and so on and so forth. And to the right, you see the buildup of the graduation, but you still have that enrolled, not graduated, and not enrolled category on the right. Now, this is for all students, okay? We'd like to see in 96, I don't know how to make that too much bigger, but the second to third year could be somewhat improved. Okay, now if you compare all new freshmen with targeted minority students, this pattern of accomplishment changes. Okay, we do very comparably well in the first to second year transition, as I said before, but then life seems to come unglued. So we clearly have to intervene now in the second and third years and carefully understand what is causing this shift in patterns. What are we not doing right? What advising needs to be repaired to get that job done? By the way, on the new freshmen, notice that we have a number of people graduating in 3 years. Talk about a 4-year graduation rate. We have some fairly aggressive individuals who are getting out in 3 years, and they're not carrying 12 credits. I'll skip over this. A few economic markers. Alumni who reside in Wisconsin, of those who were Wisconsin's residents as students, 74% are still here. Okay, of those who are not Wisconsin residents, 8% lived in Wisconsin in 2012. Okay, now I'm not sure that's a complete restoration of trade balance, but it's not bad. Okay, the retention rate, we have a lovely state and lovely communities in that state, and those kids stick around. Probably the loss, by the way, are the professional schools. For example, physicians stay where they did their residency, not where they got their MD. That's a common thing. So if you want more positions in the state, you have to increase the residency pool to do that. Now, here's another economic indicator. This is the extramural award profile from 9 through 12. You can see the federal awards are, if anything, going up, excluding that 1 year at 800. And keep in mind that year of 800 was a ARRA program, so it was an injection of federal money into the research environment for a couple of years, and that was all came out during that period. But if you look, really, you should look at 9, 11, and 12. That's more systematic of what's going on. So we're about $700 million federal, and the whole roll-up is around $900 million. So for purposes of discussion, let's call it $1 billion. So it would be interesting for you to think about what company in the state of Wisconsin spends as a percentage of their gross revenues $1 billion a year on basic research. And what would the size of that company be? That would be a company with sales in excess of $100 billion a year would invest 10% of their proceeds from an annual year back into basic research and discovery. So you have an astounding investment in the research and discovery environment that benefits, ideally, the state and nation in some measurable way. I'm not going to discuss that. And I can't get the slide to change, so there we go. Now, an issue came up about STEM, and I prepared some extra slides about engineering degrees, but I'll defer that discussion pending whatever questions you have on what I've gone somewhat quickly through.
I noticed that last year in the engineering school we had few graduates, fewer than in recent years. That said, I guess the typical school would have an enrollment of X. It would be consistent like a law school class, medical school class. how do we think about engineering and these STEM offerings on the Madison campus going forward?
First, the national picture. Our School of Engineering is, from a quality standpoint, is very high. Many of our departments are ranked in the top 3 or 4 nationally. The one that pops immediately to mind is chemical engineering, which I think has never been ranked less than 3. They get positively offended if they get ranked below 3. So the school is extraordinary in its quality, but it's relatively small size, okay, relative to other comparable big public. Compare, for example, with Illinois as the size of the engineering school. 2, we have put in a very aggressive effort to deal with that problem. And here's an example that speaks to the issue that you were talking about. We have targeted a growth in the engineering school, adding almost 1,000 students to the undergraduate population. You can see that trajectory started right around the time I came on board. That's not related, okay. But the growth in that period is over 30%. Now, you don't see that yet in the graduation rate because they're just beginning to graduate. Okay, so you'll see a big uptick. Actually, we saw an uptick last spring, which represented that. You'll see an even bigger uptick next spring. We're at about 600, as I recall, additional students with a target goal of getting to 1,000. You have to track your resources for that. Engineering education is not cheap, either in human capital or physical capital. And of course, in today's environment, that's been an extraordinary challenge, but we're trying to get there. That help, Jerry? I thought someone would comment about my psychedelic tie. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.